Hey guys, tonight we're slipping far back into time, like way before cities, before empires, before writing, when you wake up on the stone floor of a dark cave, nestled beside a sleeping family of hominids who all snore like bears. Congratulations, you're officially a cavewoman. And spoiler alert, you probably won't survive this. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Also, I want to know where you're watching from and what time it is. Drop your city and your timestamp in the comments. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You stir before the sun rises, not because you want to, but because the cave is chilly. Your straw mat pokes your hip bone, and there's a faint, stomach-tightening stench of something dead. That's your cue. You sit up, blinking into the blue-grey gloom, and see the outline of the cave's entrance lit with early smoke clings low to the ground from last night's iron. You cough quietly, careful not to wake the newborn bundled beside you, swaddled in rabbit fur and dreams. Your joints already ache. You're around 30 years old, which makes you, brace for it, an elder. You've made it well past average life expectancy for your time, especially if you've survived childbirth more than once. That's no small feat. There's no such thing as comfort here, but you've made peace with the stone hardness of life. You stretch and something cracks, shoulder or spine, take your pick. In the corner of the cave, two younger women are stirring too. One's your cousin, the other is a teen who's been shadowing you during foraging trips, watching how you identify tubers and avoid the deathberries that look exactly like the edible ones. Except, they kill you. That's the thing, everything wants to kill you. The cold, the wild cats, the parasites, the mouldy root you mistakenly thought was fine. Survival is a tightrope and you walk it daily. You reach for your pouch, a loosely braided carrier of dried reeds, and pull out a chewed bit of bark. It's bitter. Kinda gross, but it wakes you up. Probably willow. Might help that sore tooth you've been ignoring for weeks, maybe. You drag your hair back with a bone pin, practical, stylish, in a prehistoric sort of way. Outside the cave, the world is damp and hushed. Dew clings to the ferns and a fat beetle skitters underfoot as you make your way to the ridge. You squat, scan the horizon. It's clear, but something in the stillness tugs at you. Last week, a pair of teenage boys got too close to a leopard den. One made it back. The other, well, you honoured him by leaving a carved token at the cave wall. That's your way of saying goodbye. You take a moment to relieve yourself behind a bush, swatting at midges that seem genetically designed to annoy. Then you pad barefoot to the fire pit. Someone's already laid fresh twigs, probably your mate if you have one this season. Relationships here aren't exactly hallmark material. They're more like alliances, sometimes fleeting, sometimes long-term. But mostly they're about survival, protection, and pooling resources. Still, if he's warmed the hearth this morning, you make a mental note to let him pick the better cut of meat later. That's as close to a love note as it gets. You kneel, blow on the embers. Sparks leap up, crackling. It takes practice to rekindle a fire. You learned by watching your aunt when you were 6, and now you teach others. That's the rhythm of your world. Observation, imitation, repetition. No chalkboards, no lectures, just doing. With the fire stirring to life, a few others emerge from the cave, stretching, yawning, scratching. One of the older men limps to the side to inspect a woven trap he set at dusk. It's empty. You both nod without speaking. That's another thing, language is here, but not the way we think of it. You have words, sounds, gestures, songs even, but you communicate just as much through shared looks and the angle of your head. Now the day truly begins. You glance upward. The sun is rising, soft and orange. You estimate you've got maybe 12 hours of light. That means foraging, childcare, crafting, scouting, possibly hunting. No part of your day is free time. Even your rest serves a purpose. Guarding the cave entrance, weaving a basket, scraping a hide while watching over the little ones. One of the toddlers scampers toward you, completely naked and smeared in ash. He's got a half-eaten mushroom in his fist. You snatch it away, sniff it, thankfully not the poisonous kind. Still, you make a note to gather more food today. Kids are walking stomachs and not the best at distinguishing edible from fatal. Here's the thing most people forget. Cavewomen like you aren't just cave moms, waiting in the dark while cavemen do all the exciting stuff. You're central to survival. You're the memory keepers. You remember where the berries ripen earliest, which roots grow near the stream, where the wasp nests hide in spring. You are strategy, nutrition, medicine, emotional regulation, and occasionally war. And sometimes, you're the one making the hard call, leaving behind the weak, choosing the safer path over the richer hunt, burying your child beneath a cairn of stones while trying not to collapse. This world is brutal, but you're not just surviving it, you're adapting to it, changing with it. You're proto-humanity's MVP. As more of your group stirs, the sound of voices drifts up, low, rhythmic. Someone starts humming. Another sharpens a stower blade. Children play with a goat skull like it's a doll. A thin mist rises from the ground, curling like breath over the grass. You pull your fur wrap tighter around your shoulders and stand. Today will be another day of moving, watching, teaching, dodging danger, and maybe, if you're lucky, finding a patch of honey hidden in the rocks. You're not just a cave woman, you're the backbone of the tribe. And right now, the sun's fully up. It's time to work. The word breakfast makes modern people think of pancakes, scrambled eggs, and maybe a latte with an oat milk foam swirl. You, however, step into the damp morning air, stomach growling, and think of beetles, not metaphorically. You're literally hoping to find a beetle, maybe two, that you can pop open and chew for protein. Welcome to the real first meal of the day, Paleolithic sword or style. There's no pantry, no kitchen, no predictable stash. What you eat depends entirely on your skills, your memory, your instincts, and, honestly, a healthy dose of luck. But you don't just wander out blindly, you head toward a patch of woodland you've visited before, where tree roots tangle above ground and mushrooms like to huddle in clusters. You crouch beside one, poke your finger into the dirt and sniff. Rich, loamy, and earthy. That's a good sign. You spot 3 white-capped mushrooms, break one open and check for bugs. There are some, which is actually a bonus. Bugs equal protein. This is a solid find. Your younger cousin trails behind, watching you closely. She asks nothing, but mimics your movements, gathering what you gather. This is how it's passed down, the entire culinary and survival encyclopedia of your people, without a single word written, only repeated in countless early mornings like this. You dig around tree roots with a pointed stick, your fingers working faster than you'd like because, well, you're hungry. You uncover a fibrous root, give it a quick whack against a stone to test its softness. Too tough? You toss it aside. A few minutes later, you find one that gives a little under pressure. You break off a piece, sniff it, nibble the edge. It tastes like dirt and pencil shavings, which is about as good as it gets. Into the pouch it goes. You aren't alone out here. Birds flit through the trees overhead, chirping their gossipy morning songs. You hear rustling to your left and freeze. Is it a deer? A wild pig? A rival forager from another group? The moment stretches. Your cousin grips her digging stick tighter. Then a rabbit bursts from the underbrush, bolts into the trees, and vanishes. You both exhale. You smile at her, the kind of smile that says, "Good instincts. That tension might save your life one day." Farther down the trail you find a log rolled halfway onto its side. Jackpot. Underneath you uncover a moist buffet of wriggling grubs and beetles. You pop one in your mouth without hesitation. Crunch, bitter, nutty, disgusting, but it goes down fast. You hand a few to your cousin and pocket the rest in a leaf wrap. One of the beetles has shiny wings, an iridescent blue that gleams in the sun. You don't eat that one. You might press it into a braid later, or offer it to a child as a shiny little treasure. Even in the Stone Age, cool accessories matter. Back at the cave, others are starting to stir to life. A few men have returned from a short-range hunting attempt, dragging a small animal that looks like a raccoon and smells worse. They'll skin it later, but the meat won't go to waste. Neither will the bones, the fur, the organs, even the teeth might become decoration. Nothing is ever just food. It's material, it's trade, it's symbolism. You chew on another grub and wonder if they had any luck finding bird eggs. Those are a treat. Fragile, hard to find, but full of nutrients. You pass another woman who's mashing something for your parent on a flat stone. She's using a round stone to crush it in rhythmic movements. It's not grain, not yet, but some sort of starchy root she's found that breaks down into a paste. You nod in appreciation. There's a kind of genius to this repetitive motion, to the work that gets done before hunger becomes desperation. There's a debate among archaeologists about whether cave women like you were primarily gatherers, and the consensus is shifting. Yes, you're gathering, but this isn't passive work, it's targeted, skilled, seasonal. You know when certain fruits ripen, when mushrooms are safe, how to test for toxins. You're not just wandering around hoping food drops from the sky. You're part ecologist, part chef, part chemist, and also deeply aware that any misstep could mean death. You return with your bounty. Mushrooms, a few edible leaves, 3 beetles, a waxy green fruit, and a half-root. It won't win any awards, but it will keep the sharp edge of hunger at bay. You offer some to the elder who hasn't been able to walk since her leg was crushed in a fall 2 winters ago. She smiles toothlessly, accepts it with a grateful grunt, and motions for you to sit. Together you eat in silence. Warm air creeps into the day, burning off the early fog. You watch smoke rise from the rekindled fire. A baby cries. Somewhere someone is chipping away at stone, shaping it into a sharper blade. This is your world. A loop of survival, simple, or care, movement, or alertness, and short bursts of connection. You don't get bored. Boredom requires comfort. You've never had enough of that to become bored. And sometimes, surprisingly, there are treats. Like the time someone discovered a hive tucked between 2 rocks, and the group gorged on wild honey until your faces and fingers were sticky for days. Or when the river fish swam upstream in a glittering mass, and the whole tribe feasted like gods. You remember those days vividly? Sweetness, abundance, the feeling of full bellies and laughter echoing in the cave. There's a quirky theory floating around among researchers that our modern sweet tooth might actually originate with people like you. Those rare bursts of natural sugar lighting up the brain like a celebration, encoding a craving. We still haven't shaken thousands of years later. It's weird to think about. But maybe your love for honey led to future generations inventing cookies. As the morning rolls forward, you pack your pouch again, this time for a longer foraging run deeper into the woods. Others are heading out too. You exchange nods, a quick hand on a shoulder, a warning glance toward the dark clouds gathering in the east. There's always weather coming. There's always something. You won't call it breakfast because you don't have a word for that. But this small collection of scavenged life force, that was your first meal. And now your day can begin in earnest. There's something oddly satisfying about the way stone meets stone. One in your palm, one anchored in a crevice, as you strike again and again, chipping away with careful focus. The rhythm is soothing. Tap, tap, scrape, twist. You're shaping a tool from flint, and it's not just practical, it's personal. This is your multi-tool, your fork, knife, and can opener all in one. Welcome to prehistoric DIY. You squat near the edge of the clearing outside your cave, legs comfortably bent, feet bare and dirt-caked, fingers blackened with charcoal and grease. Around you the hum of morning activity picks up. Someone's skinning the morning's raccoon-like prize. Someone else is repairing a woven net with fingers that move so fast you'd swear she has 4 hands. But your attention is fixed on your latest project. A broken scraper that needs sharpening or repurposing before it's useless. And useless isn't an option. Here's the deal. Tools aren't just a guy thing. That whole caveman club in hand stereotype? Total nonsense. You and your fellow cavewomen shape tools all the time. Maybe not always for big game hunting, but for processing hides, cutting roots, making cordage, or carving bone. You're a craftswoman, whether you get credit or not. You pick up a piece of flint and turn it in the light. It has a promising edge, smooth, shiny, razor-thin along one side. You test it on your thumb, barely grazing the skin. It slices a hairline scratch with almost no pressure. Perfect. You grip the hammerstone and strike, angling the blow to flake off a clean chip. 1, 2, 3. By the 4th strike, your scraper's back in business. A younger girl comes over to watch. She plops beside you without a word and mimics your movements using a dull chunk of limestone. It won't work, of course, but that's how you all learn. By doing, failing, retrying. You let her try for a bit, then wordlessly pass her a small piece of better quality stone. Her eyes light up. You've just given her a future. Nearby, someone's cracking bone with a heavy stone to get at the marrow, the Stone Age version of a high-protein smoothie. That marrow will be smeared on roasted roots later, or eaten raw depending on the fire situation. Tools come into that too. Without sharp stones and bone awls, you'd be gnawing like animals, scraping by literally with your teeth. But with them, you're engineering your own solutions. Tool use, according to a lot of scholars, is one of the key markers of early intelligence. But what's interesting and still up for debate is who used which tools and why. For decades, people assumed only men made and used the important ones, like spears or blades. but recent digs say otherwise. Microwear analysis on tools found in hearth areas suggest women use scrapers and cutters constantly. Add to that evidence of symmetrical wear from right-handed women, and suddenly the narrative gets more balanced. And one fringe theory even suggests that women may have been the first weavers, the OG textile workers. And though no ancient Stone Age basket or cloak survived the ravages of time, the imprints left in hardened clay suggest you and your kind were weaving fibres into useful and probably beautiful things, long before pottery showed up. Imagine netting, mats, slings, satchels, even belts, all from the hands of cave women who had never heard the word fashion, yet were creating trends nonetheless. As the sun inches upward, warming the stones beneath your feet, you pull out a long strip of dried sinew. It's from a deer you helped butcher weeks ago. You soak the tough cord in water, then begin twisting it into thread. You'll use it to bind a new knife to its handle later, or maybe reinforce the edge of your digging stick. This isn't craft time, it's the infrastructure of survival. Without this, your people don't eat, dress, or travel. A guy walks past with a bundle of spears and grunts something about a hunt. You nod, but you're not going. Not today. Your job is here, keeping things functioning. He's not more important than you, he's just louder. And possibly hungrier. That's fine. Let him go chase antelope. You'll be here making the pouch that'll carry the meat home. When your scraper's done, you test it on a strip of dried hide. It glides across, shaving off bits of fur and fat. It works. You smile. The girl next to you whoops and shows you a jagged chunk she's proud of. It's terrible, but you nod. She'll get there. There's a constant low-level pressure in your world to repair, to replace, to invent. You're not making tools for fun. You're doing it because your life literally depends on them. No replacement parts, no backup kits. If something breaks on a journey and you don't have the right fix, that's a problem you may not walk away from. So everyone becomes a sort of engineer, even if you don't realise that's what you are. Somewhere in the future, people will marvel at your rudimentary creations. They'll put them in museums under glass and whisper about their age, as if time alone makes something valuable. But you know better. That stone knife in your hand? It's not art. It's survival. It's a legacy in progress. It's what separates you from the scavengers who snarl just beyond the trees. You set aside the finished tool, place it carefully in your pouch, then you grab another chunk of antler and begin working a groove into it. A curved hook, maybe. You haven't decided yet, but your hands keep moving as they always do. Your tools take shape in your fingers just as your day does. One strike at a time. You wouldn't call it a nuclear family, because your tribe doesn't have neat little boxes for roles like mother, father, daughter, or nephew. Instead, your social world is built like a web, flexible, overlapping, and deeply interconnected. Blood matters, yes, but survival matters more. And the people you trust the most, those are the ones you share your fire with every night. As morning stretches into midday, the cave fills with life. Children chase each other with sticks. Someone braids grass into rough mats. A group returns from the river, water sloshing in bark bowls strapped to their backs with sinew cords. You've finished your tool work for now and are watching over the little ones, not because it's your job exactly, but because you're the most alert adult within earshot. That's how this works. Constant shifting of responsibilities based on need, not rules. Your closest bond is with your sister's daughter. She clings to your side, chewing on a softened root and humming a tune she probably picked up from the older girls. Her face is smudged with charcoal from the fire pit, and her hair's in wild tangles. You smooth it back gently, finger combing through the knots, and hum along. She reminds you of your own first child, the one you lost 2 winters ago during a cold spell that swept through like a ghost and stole half your group in 3 days. You still think about that, not with the sharp grief of the moment, but with a dull ache that lives in your chest like a coiled snake. Family here is fluid. A child might have 2 parents, or 5, depending on who's feeding, teaching, or cuddling them that week. You share breastfeeding duties with your cousin, and when one of you is sick or away, the other steps in without question. Motherhood isn't private, it's a shared contract written in firewood, cooked meat, and sleepless nights. There's an older woman, grey-haired, hunched, eyes like flint, who oversees a lot of this domestic ballet. She's not your mother, but she might be your mother's sister, or her cousin, or just someone who stuck around long enough to become family. Everyone calls her something that roughly translates to the one who remembers. She's been here through famines, floods, childbirths, and migrations. She carries knowledge like it's sewn into her bones. She also carries authority in her way. When there's a dispute over resources or behaviour, like last moon when two men fought over access to a favoured hunting trail, she's the one people look to, not to issue commands but to recall precedent. This is what we did when the river dried. This is where the red berries grew before the landslide. In a society without laws, memory is law, and women, especially the elders, are the keepers of that law. Some researchers call this matrilocal living, where women stay in their birth group and men come to them. It's still debated. Some evidence suggests more flexible arrangements, with people coming and going freely based on kin ties and alliances. But whatever the exact setup, what's clear is that women weren't passive background characters in prehistory. You weren't just childbearers. You were teachers, strategists, and mediators. And above all, you were part of a web that thrived on cooperation. That web extends to food, too. When someone brings back meat, it doesn't go straight to their own family. It gets shared. Maybe not always equally, but definitely communally. You might get a leg bone for the soup if you're nursing. The teens who helped carry it back get a few fatty pieces. Even the elders get something soft and chewable. The act of dividing food is like a ritual in itself, and everyone watches. Fairness matters. Greed is dangerous. It breeds mistrust, and mistrust fractures the group. And a fractured group, that's a death sentence out here. Around midday, you join a small circle preparing a meal. You strip the skin from a handful of roots and mash them into a paste. Another woman grinds dried berries into a powder with a flat stone. Someone else is stirring hot rocks into a bark bowl of water to heat it slowly. It's like soup making, only with fewer utensils and more finger burns. As you work, you talk, not in long, philosophical conversations, but in short bursts. Watch for ants. Too much ash in that one. I saw fresh tracks by the stream. These exchanges keep you tethered to each other. They're practical, but underneath them they carry warmth, trust and familiarity. The kind of talk that says, I know you, I've got your back, let's survive this day together. One of the kids wanders over with a stick in one hand and a dead mouse in the other. She beams, proud of her hunt. You praise her and tell her to take it to the fire pit. Someone will roast it, maybe as a joke, maybe as a snack. Either way, she's learning. That praise matters. It's not about gold stars, it's about reinforcing what keeps your people alive. By now, the cave is warm with smoke and laughter. The baby has stopped crying. A group of teens is climbing the ridge, probably looking for dry branches or just a break from the noise. You glance around and realise something. No one is ever truly alone here. Privacy is rare, solitude is suspect. You eat together, sleep together, raise children together. Your survival depends on it. There's a beautiful, unspoken choreography to this life. Someone tends the fire while someone else repairs the water pouches. One woman braids cordage while her sister nurses a baby. You don't need a job title, you just respond to need, and in turn your needs are met, most of the time. And when they're not, when something goes wrong, when someone is hurt, when a child doesn't make it through the night, that web of care pulls tighter. People cry together, bury together, remember together. You've done all of that more times than you can count, but each time it reinforces a truth older than language. You are not alone. You help serve the warm root mash into leaf bowls, hand one to the elder, one to your cousin. Then you settle down with your own, legs folded, eyes on the horizon. A hawk circles above the trees. Someone laughs behind you. Your sister's daughter climbs into your lap, sticky fingers in her mouth. She smells like ash and berries and sun. This isn't just family. It's your village, your tribe, your survival engine. You didn't choose it, but you sustain it every moment with your hands, your memory, and your unshakable presence. There's a story you've heard whispered over and over, especially at night when the fire crackles low and people start to talk instead of work. It's about a woman, tall, fast, quiet as falling snow, who brought down a gazelle with nothing but a spear and a good eye. No men around, just her. They say she crouched in the grass for hours, waiting for the wind to shift, for the moment to strike. When it did, she ran barefoot, flint-tipped spear in hand, and when she threw it, the animal fell. Clean, quick. Real or not, that story lives in every girl's ears, and when you tie your pouch to your hip and head out beyond the safe curve of the cave, you remember her, because you might just be her today. You've heard it your whole life, that men hunt, women gather. Neat. Clean. Wrong. Today you're proving it false with every careful footstep into the underbrush. The group heading out is mixed. 2 women, 3 men, and 1 broad-shouldered teen who hasn't figured out how to step quietly yet. You raise a finger to your lips as his foot snaps a twig. He winces. He'll learn, or he won't, and he'll get someone hurt. The plan isn't a full-blown hunt. It's a small scouting trip, maybe snare a hare, maybe find some birds' eggs or locate a watering hole where animals gather. But you bring your spear anyway. It's not decorative, you made it yourself, fitted the flint point, wrapped it with sinew, tested its balance. It's not perfect, but it flies straight enough. And you've thrown it before, not at a target, not in play, but in defence. 2 summers ago you stood between a charging boar and your younger cousin. You still have the scar where the tip of your own spear rebounded and scraped your thigh. Hunting, even low level like this, demands a kind of alertness most modern humans never feel. Every twig snap, every gust of wind, every shift in birdsong might mean something's near, or something's watching. You crouch low and listen. The forest smells of damp leaves, old mushrooms, animal musk. You spot fresh tracks in the mud, hoof prints, deer maybe. You press your hand against one and feel the faint residual warmth. Not long ago. You motion to the others, and the group slows. There's debate among scholars about just how much hunting women did. For a long time it was assumed almost none, but archaeological digs have begun turning up female skeletons buried with hunting tools, projectile points, and butchered animals nearby. In some regions, especially where small game was more accessible than massive beasts, it's likely women hunted regularly, especially in mixed-sex groups, especially when there weren't enough men, or when the prey was too quick for a big clumsy team to catch. And honestly, who says you can't do it? You've got endurance, you're fast, you know the terrain, you notice the tiny breaks in the bramble where rabbits squeeze through, the way the birds go silent just before something bolts from the grass. You're a predator too. The group halts near a stream. You all drop into a crouch, scanning the clearing. Nothing yet. The men fan out, but you hang back. You've learned patience. You've learned that sometimes the one who waits is the one who wins. You finger the smooth shaft of your spear, testing its weight, thinking about that story again, the woman and the gazelle. You believe she existed, maybe not exactly like the story says, but close enough. Suddenly a rustle, your breath stills, a flash of brown moves in the reeds. One of the men raises his spear too early and the deer bolts. No chance for a clean throw, it's gone before you even fully stand. You sigh, annoyed but unsurprised. Another might come, or not. You use this pause to scan for other signs, broken branches, tufts of fur, disturbed earth. You're always reading, even when the pages are invisible to most. You notice a bird's nest high in a low-hanging tree and nod to your fellow hunter. She smiles. Together you climb, careful not to jostle the branches. Inside the nest, Torret, 3 pale eggs, speckled and perfect. Not much food, but food all the same. You wrap them gently in woven grass and tuck them into your pouch. That's 2 days of meals for a toddler, or 1 decent snack for you and your cousin. The group regathers, mostly empty-handed, but not defeated. That's the nature of this game. Some days you come back loaded with meat. Other days you come back with knowledge, where the prey moved, what the waterline looks like, which berries are ripening early this season. All of it matters. On the way back, the teen who snapped the twig earlier walks beside you. Quiet this time. He glances at your spear, then at your eyes, and says nothing. But you catch the look, part apology, part admiration. He saw the way you moved, the way you held still, the way you knew what to do when the rest of them were fumbling. Back near the cave, smoke rises from the fire. The scent of roasted root vegetables reaches your nose. Someone's been busy. You drop your finds in the shared basket and tell the others about the tracks by the stream. That intel will matter. Maybe not now, but later. Maybe tonight, maybe next week. You don't brag, you don't need to. You just do. You're not here to prove anything. You're here to provide, protect, participate. To be part of the moving whole that keeps your people alive. And yet, deep down, you do think about the story. About the tall, fast woman and her solitary hunt. And just for a moment, you wonder if one day someone will tell a story about you. You sit with your legs folded under you, hands slick with animal fat, and a faint stripe of soot painted across your cheek. Unintentionally, but it looks good. Not that you're getting ready for a date or anything. You're preparing to head into the afternoon with a face streaked in protective grease, a braid coiled over your shoulder, and the faint aroma of crushed pine needles clinging to your skin. It's not glam by modern standards, but in your world, this is self-care. Today's skincare routine begins with a smear of rendered deer fat across your cheeks and forehead. It keeps your skin from cracking in the wind and the sun from blistering it raw. If you're really feeling fancy, you might mix in a little red ochre, a powdery pigment you crush with a rock and spit into until it becomes a paste. You dab it on your face in lines, maybe around your eyes or across your chest, depending on your mood or the occasion. It doesn't just look cool, it might even keep bugs away, or spirits, depending on who you ask. There's still debate among modern researchers about what these pigments meant. Were they decoration, camouflage, sacred symbols? Maybe all three, depending on the context. Some archaeologists believe ochre use had ritual significance linked to birth, death, or coming of age. Others think it was a practical thing, like early sunscreen. You don't have the answer. All you know is that when you mix that crimson earth into a perfect stripe down your nose, you feel stronger, sharper, a little more like yourself. Beauty rituals, if you can even call them that, exist in your world. They're just different. No one's plucking eyebrows or doing 10-step skincare routines, but you do have a routine. You scrape gunk from under your nails with a sliver of bone. You clean your teeth with a fibrous twig, chewing until it frays like a bristly brush. Your hair gets combed with a forked stick or a porcupine quill, depending on what's handy. And once in a while, if you find a smooth stream or a warm spring, you go full spa mode and soak. Alone, preferably. And jewellery? Oh yeah, you rock that too. You wear a necklace made from carved bone beads and one shiny shell that someone brought back from the coast moons ago. It jingles faintly when you move. You have a favourite bracelet, a strip of woven bark dyed dark with berry juice. It's not for function, it's for you. And that in this world is revolutionary. You see, humans, yes, even cave ones, have always had a thing for adornment. It's not just about vanity, it's about identity, belonging, maybe even mood. You wrap the feather into your braid not because someone told you to, but because it reminds you of that day you found it. Sun filtering through the trees, your belly full for once, laughter echoing through the grass. That feather means something, even if no one else knows what. Your cousin comes over and smears some soot under her eyes. You raise an eyebrow. She shrugs. "The bugs are awful," she mutters. Sure they are, but also she's trying to look fierce. You get it. You hand her a small shard of polished bone to use as a mirror. It reflects just enough light to let her see her face. She makes a face at herself and laughs. Somewhere in the background, a few teens are weaving strands of bark into a headband. One of them pokes holes in snail shells with a hot stick, stringing them into what will become an anklet. It rattles gently when she walks. She grins when you compliment it. Even in the Stone Age, the urge to accessorize runs deep. And here's a quirky detail that would baffle future anthropologists. The ashen grease mixture you rub into your scalp every few days. Total hair care magic. It keeps lice away most of the time, and protects against sunburn. It smells like burnt meat and crushed sage, which sounds terrible, until you realise how comforting that scent is. It smells like survival, like home. There's a quiet sort of power in taking time for these little rituals. Sure, you don't always have the luxury. Some days are pure chaos, and you're lucky to slap on some mud and call it a look. But when you can take the time, even 5 minutes, to sit by the fire and scrape the dead skin from your heels with a stone, you feel more like yourself. Grounded, centred, less like prey, more like a person. Some anthropologists argue that these acts, painting faces, making jewellery, grooming hair, were some of the first signs of culture, of complex thought, of being human. And maybe that's true. Maybe this moment right here, rubbing grease into your arms while trading stories with your cousin, is more than a simple hygiene routine. Maybe it's a declaration. I'm still here. I'm still me. I'm more than survival. Later, when the sun begins to dip and the shadows stretch long, you'll wash off the ochre and the soot. Or maybe you'll leave it on, let it smear across your fur wrap and mark the bone you carry in your belt. These things don't last, but then again, nothing really does in your world. Except the stories. Like the one about the woman who wove spider silk into her hair before a long journey. Or the one who always wore a necklace of boar teeth and never once lost a battle. Real or not, those stories linger. Just like the red stripe across your cheek, they make you feel just a little bolder. You rise, brush the dirt from your knees, and tie your pouch back around your waist. You catch your reflection again in the shard of bone, just briefly. Ochre-lined eyes, wind-burnt skin, lips pressed into a soft smirk. Not bad, you think? Not bad at all. You look like someone who might just survive the night. There's a hush in the cave when you step inside, a hush so thick it settles on your skin like dust. The air smells of smoke and damp stone, with a faint edge of something older, something mineral and almost metallic. Your feet crunch softly on the packed dirt floor as you make your way toward the back wall, where the light fades and the ceiling lowers. This is where the stories live. Not the ones told aloud by the fire, but the ones painted, pressed, and whispered into the very bones of the rock. Your fingers brush the wall, already smudged with centuries of soot, clay, and charcoal. The surface is cool, uneven, shaped by nature, but claimed by humans. By you, by your ancestors, by those who stood barefoot here long before you, and who in the quietest of moments tried to make their mark. Tonight, you're here to add your own. You crouch beside the fire, now burning low, and mix a fresh paste of charcoal and spit. It's gritty on your tongue. You blend in some yellow ochre powder you collected earlier, crushed from a soft rock you found near the riverbank. It mixes into a sickly golden smear that smells faintly of iron and damp moss. You stir it with a twig, test it with your fingertip. Satisfied, you begin. You start with a line, a thick, confident stroke, black against the stone. Then another, curving to the right. You're not drawing for realism. You're not even drawing for others. You're drawing because the image is already inside you, waiting to get out. Deer maybe, or a bison. Something powerful, something you saw in the brush a few days ago, so close you could smell its heat. You use your finger to shape the muscle lines, your knuckle to dab in a flank. You blend colours by spitting and smearing. The wall drinks it in greedily, like it remembers every mark ever made. You add dots, clusters that look random but aren't. They tell a pattern, a path, a movement through the land only you and those who know the code can read. Behind you, another woman watches. She sits in silence, arms wrapped around her knees, eyes fixed on the unfolding form. Eventually, she picks up a bit of chewed charcoal and joins in. Together, you move along the wall, not speaking, but fully in sync. You don't need to explain the shapes. She sees the animal just as you do. She's seen the same trails, heard the same hoofbeats in the night. You both understand this is more than a picture. It's memory made solid. For decades, historians assumed these cave paintings were created by men, shamans, hunters, elders, but newer studies challenge that. The handprints left behind, pressed in ochre, blown through reeds, negative impressions like ancient signatures, often belong to women. The ratios of finger lengths, wrist angles, and hand sizes suggest many of these decorators were female. You'd laugh if you could see the confusion on modern faces trying to wrap their heads around that. Like it's hard to believe a woman could draw a majestic bison and also carry a toddler on her back. But here you are, doing both, and doing it well. The act of painting isn't just about aesthetics, it's spiritual, or at least it feels that way. When your fingers drag across stone, leaving a smear of black where once there was nothing, you feel connected, not just to your own experience, but to the deep thread that ties you to those who came before. There's a story your grandmother once told about a cave that could speak. It repeated your footsteps, your breath, even your heartbeat. "'Cause it listens," she said. "It remembers." You think of that now as you press your palm flat to the wall, leaving a red print just beneath the deer's belly. Some believe these paintings were prayers. Others think they were instructions, maps for migration, hunting, survival. And maybe that's true, but there's also a possibility they were just expression. The simple human desire to take what's inside your mind and put it somewhere real. Just like the necklaces you make, the tools you carve, the stories you murmur to babies as they fall asleep. You create, because you can. You pause to study your work. The deer is mid-leap now, hooves extended, head raised, eyes hollow, but somehow full of motion. You add a final line, a mark across the shoulder, meant to suggest speed or maybe a spear wound. You're not sure, but it feels right. Behind you, someone coughs. The spell breaks a little. You look back. A child has wandered into the space, eyes wide in awe. He reaches a grubby hand toward the wall, and you gently catch his wrist. "Watch," you whisper, and press his hand into the clay, leaving behind a smaller print beside your own. He grins. That print will outlive both of you, maybe for tens of thousands of years. You sit for a moment longer in the silence. The fire casts flickering shadows on your drawings, making them move just a little. You think of all the images buried in caves that no one's found yet, of all the voices waiting inside the walls, and how lucky you are to speak through your hands. Eventually you rise, you wipe your fingers on your wrap, shake out your arms, stretch. Your knees crack from crouching too long. The child skips ahead of you off toward the firelight and the sound of others. You follow. The wall behind you remains unchanged and yet transformed. It's still just stone, but now it holds a fragment of your story, your breath, your presence. A kind of prehistoric signature that says, I was here, I mattered. And as the cave swallows your footprints and the smoke rises again, you wonder, years from now, when this place is silent and buried, who will find these shapes? And what will they think you were trying to say? The scent of crushed leaves and damp earth hangs heavy in the air as you move slowly through a patch of undergrowth, your eyes darting across the forest floor in search of something specific. Low, serrated leaves, with soft fuzz on the underside and stems that bleed white when broken. That's your quarry this afternoon. Not meat, not berries, but medicine. You kneel beside a cluster of the plants you've been searching for. Milkweed. You tug one up gently by its root, shake off the clinging dirt and breathe in its sharp green aroma. Not for food, definitely not. You've seen people chew the wrong part and double over in pain, but for skin infections and stings, it's magic. You mash it into a pulp, mix it with clay and ash and smear it on a bite. Gone by morning, not that anyone calls it medicine out loud, it's just what works, what you do, what you know. This knowledge doesn't come from trial and error. Not recently, anyway. It's been passed down, murmured between mothers and daughters, traded with neighbouring clans, remembered in song and story. The cavewoman next to you, your cousin's daughter maybe, hands you a tuft of moss she's been drying by the fire. For bleeding, she says. You nod. She's right. You both know that if you stuff it into a wound, it absorbs blood better than fur, and it doesn't irritate the skin. These aren't wild guesses. These are field-tested truths that have saved lives. You tuck the milkweed into your pouch and move deeper into the green. You're hunting now for yarrow, delicate fern-like leaves with tiny white blossoms. You found some here last season, and it helped ease the pain in your aunt's joints. When brewed into a bitter tea, it seems to lower fever. You can't explain how. You don't need to. You just know it works. And in a world with no doctors, no pharmacies, no sterile gauze, working is everything. Modern science has caught up in strange, belated ways. Excavated bones from your time show signs of healing. A fractured skull that knitted back together. A femur that broke and mended. That means someone took care of those people. Fed them, cleaned their wounds, kept them warm. It wasn't luck. It was early medicine. You and your people were doctors before the word existed. What's quirky is how often you rely on your nose. You sniff leaves, bark, even dirt. You've learnt that things that smell like pepper help with stomach aches. Things that smell too sweet, usually poisonous. There's a vine you avoid completely, twisting red with shiny leaves that glisten in the sun. It's killed more than one careless child, but you also know a spindly flower that grows nearby whose root, when boiled, will make someone vomit just in time. That one saved a hunter last season who ate a tainted slug. He lived, barely. You still remember how grey his face got, and how your hands trembled as you stirred the root water, praying it would do the trick. Healing is messy here. There are no bandages, no antiseptic, no painkillers, unless you count chewing willow bark, which dulls pain a little, if you chew enough of it. Some say it makes you see visions if you take too much. You don't care about that. You care that it helps a screaming child sleep through the night after a tooth gets pulled. One of your favourite remedies involves mud. Thick, mineral-rich mud from the stream bed. You pack it onto bug bites, onto bruises, even onto cracked feet. It dries into a crust that pulls out the sting. You once covered a shallow wound on your thigh in it, wrapped it with bark strips, and kept walking. Healed in a week. Not pretty, but functional. And then there's honey. If you're lucky enough to find a hive, and lucky enough to take it without getting stung into oblivion, you guard that treasure like fire itself. It's food, sure, but more than that, it's medicine. Honey keeps wounds from festering, you've seen it. Slice open a palm on a sharp stone, clean it with warm water, pack it with honey, cover it with moss and wrap it tight. Come back in 3 days and it's already closing. You don't know why, you don't need to, it just works. You pause to inspect a low bush with jagged leaves and dark berries. They look tempting. but your gut twists just seeing them. You remember your grandmother's warning, 3 black beads, death follows. You pull your cousin's daughter away when she reaches for one. She scowls, but you hand her a chunk of dried root from your pouch to chew instead. It tastes awful, but it settles the stomach. You've used it yourself more than once after eating something that didn't sit right. Still does the job. Even spiritual beliefs bleed into this. If someone's sick and you can't fix it, people start whispering about spirits, curses, broken taboos. You've watched a woman wither away after her 3rd miscarriage, and no root or tea could help. You offered her every mix you knew. She still faded. And after she passed, you tied a scrap of her hair around your wrist for a month. Not because you thought it had power, but because it made the grief bearable. And maybe that is a kind of healing too. There's a current academic debate over whether cavewomen played the lead role in healing, or if it was shared more evenly. But based on what you see every day, the answer's clear. Women hold the knowledge, not always, not exclusively, but reliably. You're the ones who care, who test, who remember. When a child cries, they run to you. When someone coughs up blood, they come to you. When a fever climbs, your hands are the ones everyone trusts. The sun is dipping lower now, light slanting through the trees. Your pouch is full. Milkweed, yarrow, a few medicinal mushrooms, and that bitter root that no one likes but always works. You start the slow walk back to the cave, your feet sinking softly into the dirt, your shadow stretching out long before you. By the time you return, the fire's glowing again and the air smells of cooked tubers. A child with a scraped knee waits by the entrance. You sit beside him, pull out a soft poultice wrapped in moss, and press it gently to his skin. He flinches, then sighs. It cools almost immediately. You don't smile. You just nod to yourself. You know what you're doing. And in this world, that's everything. You're not doing much of anything. Just squatting by the river, ankles deep in cold water, letting your fingers drift along the surface while you watch a cluster of ants climb over a decaying leaf. That's all. That's the whole activity. No urgency, no scraping hides, no gathering or grinding or hunting. For a rare stretch of time, you're off duty, which means one thing, it's time to talk. This right here is one of the most sacred traditions in your world. Not prayer, not war, but gossip. Cavewoman gossip isn't vicious or fake or whispered behind backs. It's pure social glue. It's how knowledge travels, how reputations rise or collapse, how danger is forecasted and desire is discussed. You've seen arguments start and end at this exact spot on the riverbank, where the air smells of wet stone and moss, and the fish flick shadows across the shallows. You've also seen love bloom here, or whatever passes for it in your time. Right now, there are 5 of you. You, your cousin, 2 other women from neighbouring groups, and a girl who just stopped bleeding for the first time and is now navigating the strange new attention that brings. No one makes a big deal out of it. Someone handed her a fur wrap 2 days ago and patted her on the shoulder. Welcome to the club. Your cousin is retelling a story you already know, but it's still good. Something about the last time a man got too proud after a successful hunt and then tripped over his own feet into a thorn bush while trying to impress someone. She does a dramatic impression of the fall, arms flailing, a yelp just high-pitched enough to make the others snort. The youngest laughs so hard she snorts river water and chokes. You all howl. The sound rolls across the water and up into the trees. There's debate, yes, actual scholarly debate, over when human language truly began. Some say it started with simple tool instructions, hit here, cut there. Others argue that it really began with storytelling, jokes, warnings, boasts, and more than a few researchers now believe that women, not men, may have been the ones to develop the most complex early speech. Because let's be honest, while the men are off staring silently at a herd of elk for 6 hours, you're down here exchanging 20 different words for idiot in one conversation. You talk about the weather, you talk about food, you talk about dreams. Last night, your cousin says she dreamed of a cave that had teeth, and someone else swears she once found one like that years ago, near the cliffside. You talk about the weird mushrooms that make your stomach twist sideways, and how someone's mother swears by burning them as incense to ward off storms. And you talk about people, who's been moody, who disappeared for 2 days, who keeps staring a little too long at a certain someone and pretending not to. You do it not to stir trouble, but to track the shape of your group's mood. It's a form of vigilance. If someone's angry, you want to know before it turns into violence. If someone's hurting, you want to spot a bullet before they pull away. Gossip in your world is how you take the temperature of your people. Someone brings up the new guy from the group across the ridge. Tall, wide shoulders, too quiet to be trustworthy. You shrug. You caught him picking ticks out of his armpit with surprising precision, which honestly says more about his long-term compatibility than any fire-starting skills. The others laugh, then debate his usefulness. He's a good tracker, apparently, but terrible at splitting wood. One of the women raises an eyebrow and murmurs, "Not a problem if he has other strengths." That sends the whole group into another round of cackling. A frog plops into the river and breaks the rhythm for a moment. You watch the ripples fade and let the silence settle. Then someone leans closer, lowers her voice and starts a story that isn't funny. It's about a girl who got grabbed by a rival group the last time they migrated. A group that never returned her. You all go quiet. This is part of the pattern too. Light, talk, then dark. That's the rhythm, because the danger is never far away. It's always out there, and sometimes it comes close. You shift the subject again gently. You bring up the full moon coming in 3 days. Time to prepare for the possible migration or feast, depending on weather. People will dance, maybe paint their bodies, maybe sit in silence. Depends on the mood. You all nod. There's a low buzz of anticipation. These little ceremonies, half gathering, half ritual, are like pressure valves. They keep the group from snapping. Someone mentions that her baby is teething and chewing on rocks. Another woman says, "Let him, he's toughening his gums." You all laugh, but you'll still take him a bit of softened root tonight to help soothe the pain. That's how it goes. Tough love, gentle hands. And then, just like that, the moment ends. Someone stands, the others stretch, one at a time, dusting off hands and adjusting their furs. You rise too, knees cracking slightly, and shake the water from your fingers. You didn't accomplish anything measurable here. No meat gathered, no hide scraped. But somehow this moment matters just as much, maybe more, because now you know who's in love, who's hurting, who's worried, who's ready for a fight. You have updates, insights, tiny emotional maps tucked inside your head that will guide how you move through the group for the next few days. You'll know who needs help without asking, who to avoid when tensions rise, who to comfort when the fire burns low and the past comes crawling back. That's the gift of talking, the gift of listening. You don't just survive with spears and fire, you survive with stories, with jokes, with the quiet way someone squeezes your shoulder when they walk by. By the time you return to the cave, the air is cooler, and the firelight flickers against the walls. You feel lighter, calmer, more connected. You glance around at your people and smile to yourself. The cave has its own heart, and it beats in laughter, in secrets shared at the river's edge, in the rhythm of language passed from mother to daughter. This is your network, your safety net, your tribe, and it speaks. The first scream doesn't come from the woman giving birth. It comes from her sister, short and sharp, loud enough to wake the cave, just a warning. She stands at the cave mouth, silhouetted in the firelight, face flushed, hands clenched in her fur wrap. "It's happening," she says. That's all. No panic, just fact. And suddenly everyone's moving. You're already halfway to the back of the cave where the birthing spot has been cleared. Flattened mats of grass and moss. Heated rocks pushed nearby for warmth. You've done this before, twice with your own children, 5 more times as helper, and once when it all went wrong. You never forget the one that went wrong. The woman in labour is young, maybe 16, maybe 17. It's hard to say exactly. This is her first child. Her face is pale in the firelight, slick with sweat, her breathing shallow and fast, like she's chasing something invisible. You kneel beside her, press a cool hand to her forehead, and speak in a low voice. You don't need many words, just tone. Calm, steady, solid. She clutches your arm, fingers digging in with surprising strength. Birth here isn't private. It's communal, witnessed, held. No hospital walls, no clean linens, no sterile gloves, just women around women, a half circle of hands ready to catch, support, press, soothe. One woman heats water over the fire, dropping clean stones into a carved bowl. Another massages the young mother's legs with animal fat to keep the skin supple. You check the baby's progress with 2 fingers and nod. Not yet, but close. There's no real position for childbirth. She kneels for a while, then leans against her sister. At one point she tries to stand, gripping the cave wall for balance, but the pain knocks her back down. You don't rush her. Her body leads, you follow. Everyone follows. Modern people ask if it was more dangerous back then. Yes, absolutely. There's no sugarcoating it. Birth was a high-risk event. Bleeding, breech births, tangled cords into actins. So many ways things could go wrong, but that doesn't mean it was chaos. There were techniques, rituals, knowledge passed down generation to generation. You know when to push, when to wait, when to use your fingers to reposition. You know what herbs to give for pain and what leaves to chew to slow bleeding. There's a root you've already prepared, mashed into a bitter paste. You dab it onto her tongue between contractions. She flinches at the taste but swallows. It won't stop the pain, but it'll dull the sharpness, help her focus. Another woman hums a low, droning song, one that's been sung at births for as long as anyone can remember. You've sung it too. It doesn't have words, just rhythm, like the heartbeat of the cave itself. The next contraction is huge. You see it ripple through her body like a wave crashing. She bites her own arm to keep from screaming. This is the part where even the strongest women weep, where they say they can't, where the fear grabs them by the throat. You take her face in both hands and lock eyes. You're not breaking, you say. You're opening. She breathes, she sobs, she pushes, and just like that, the baby crowns. Everything slows. The fire crackles in the distance. You hear the rhythmic scrape of someone stirring the soup. An owl hoots. And in the middle of that strange stillness, there is a second scream, shriller, smaller, raw and new. The baby is here. You catch him, slippery, warm, slick with blood and to birth water. You clear his mouth with your fingers, gently rub his back, and when he lets out that second cry, the whole cave exhales. You place him on his mother's chest. She cradles him like something holy, which he is. In this world, nothing feels more miraculous than a child who breathes. Everyone's quiet for a moment. Then someone cheers softly. Another woman begins to sing. A simple melody, old and familiar. You smile but stay focused. You press firm hands on the young mother's belly to help the afterbirth come. When it does, you wrap it in leaves and carry it outside. It'll be buried in the earth tomorrow, beneath a tree or by the stream. Some believe it helps the child grow strong if it's planted under something living. No one's sure, but it's tradition. Back inside, the baby sleeps. His mother sleeps too, finally. Her sister sits beside them, running fingers through her tangled hair. You clean your hands, wrap a cut on your thumb with moss and let your heart slow. There's a quirky theory, fringe but fascinating, that the sounds of birth, the cries, the moans, the singing, actually help shape early human language. That babies learned their first rhythms from the birthing cave, from the pulse of pain and relief and celebration. You don't know if it's true, but something about it feels right. Like the echoes of this night will live in the baby's bones, even if he never remembers. You lie back against the wall and close your eyes for a moment. Your arms ache, your knees are bruised, but you feel alive. This is the closest your people ever get to magic, to creation, to beginning again. No epidurals, no IVs, no beeping machines, just hands, songs, blood and fire. Just the knowledge you carry in your muscles and memory. When the baby stirs again and lets out a soft cry, his mother lifts him to her chest and hums the same low tune that brought him into the world. Her voice is shaky, but strong, and in that small, perfect moment the cave feels warmer, safer, like the centre of the universe. Section 11. You don't know how old she is exactly. No one does. She just is. She's always been there, it seems. Quiet, hunched, weathered like driftwood, with hair the colour of bone ash and skin that folds into itself like old hide. You call her grandmother, though she's not your mother's mother. Or even your grandmother's. That title is honorary. It means something bigger than lineage. It means this woman knows things. She sits outside the cave now, wrapped in a fur cloak stitched together from a dozen different animals, her eyes half closed against the afternoon light. A bead necklace sways gently on her sunken chest, each carved piece a marker of children lost, winters survived, travels made. It tells a story more clearly than any cave wall. You settle beside her on the stone ledge and wait, because she doesn't speak until she's ready. No one rushes grandmother. When she finally speaks, it's about the wind. It smells like new grass, she says, but also sickness. You breathe in deeply, trying to smell what she smells, and you catch a hint of rain-soaked bark, something sour underneath. Maybe she's right. She usually is. She knew last winter would be short just by watching how the birds flew, and she knew the last hunt would fail just from a dream. You asked her once how she knew so much. She shrugged. "I watched," she said. "I remembered." That's what grandmother does. She remembers not just her own life, though that alone would fill a dozen fireside stories, but the lives before hers, who was born in which season, when the great fire swept through the northern valley, where the cave with the sacred red handprints lies. You've never been there, but she has. Twice. Both times pregnant. Both times she returned with stories and strange stones tucked into her satchel. In your world, age doesn't mean frailty. It means power. Grandmother doesn't gather, she doesn't hunt. She no longer cares for children unless she wants to. But when she speaks, everyone listens. When a dispute arises, over food, over migration, over a stolen lover, it's grandmother who settles it. Not with commands, but with memory. "Last time we waited too long to leave," she'll say. Or, "The berries ripen late after the white bird returns." It's not prophecy, it's record keeping. Only instead of scrolls, she keeps it in her marrow. There's a theory, one that's not entirely fringe, that human survival during the harshest ice age periods might owe much to grandmothers. It's called the grandmother hypothesis. Basically, it says postmenopausal women kept groups alive by caring for children and passing on knowledge, while younger women continued reproducing. Evolution favoured the groups with smart, long-living women who knew where to find food when game was gone, who could teach, who could lead. You look at the woman beside you and think, yeah, that tracks. She pulls out a small pouch, unwinds it with shaking hands, and shows you a piece of something dark and shiny. Obsidian, you think at first. But no, it's too smooth. It's a tooth. Human. Probably her sisters who died during a migration season years ago. Grandmother carries it always, not because she's sad, but because remembering matters. You hand her a strip of dried meat, which she chews slowly with the few teeth she has left. Her gums are tough. Everything about her is tough. She's not sentimental, not gentle, not in the way some imagine grandmothers to be, but she's fair and sharp and still just a little bit scary even to you. Sometimes she teaches, not with lectures, but in moments. You ask her how to weave a tighter basket and she says, "Use your thumb more, that's it." But when you do, it works. You ask her how to know when someone's lying and she says, "Watch where their eyes land." You do, and she's right. Again. One time she showed you how to sharpen a blade so fine it could cut skin without drawing blood. Another time she taught you how to carve spirals into bone using a red-hot stick. No explanation, just do it like this. You still have the pendant you made that day. It hangs from your belt, smooth and dark from years of touch. She doesn't tell you everything. Some things, she says, aren't meant to be passed on yet. "You're not ready," she shrugs, which both frustrates and flatters you. It means she sees you growing, becoming something, a woman who might sit in her spot someday, if you live long enough. There's a scar on her left wrist, long, puckered, raised like a worm. You asked her about it once, and she told you the story, a leopard attack long ago during a night watch. She had nothing but a broken spear shaft. She lost the fight, but lived. The leopard didn't. She points to the beads at the top of her necklace, 3 of them carved from feline bone. "I don't waste anything," she says. Even now she's scanning the horizon, watching clouds, listening to the birds. She leans forward suddenly and says, "Rain, by moonrise." You look up, clear sky, but you don't doubt her. You make a mental note to bring in the firewood early. You ask her one more question, about a place she once mentioned, a canyon with red stones and a cave shaped like a wolf's mouth. She nods slowly. "It's west," she says. "Far. You'll know it when the ground sings." And that's it. No direction, just poetry. That's how she teaches. As the sun begins to drop behind the trees, casting long shadows over the ridge, she groans and stands, bones popping like dry wood. You move to help her, but she bats you away with the edge of her fur. "I'm not dead yet," she snaps. Then she chuckles. You smile. She does that on purpose. Makes you remember that even old bones still carry heat. Later, as the fire is lit and the group gathers, grandmother speaks. She tells a story, one you've heard before but still lean into. It's about a hunt that went wrong, a snowstorm, and how she kept 4 people alive with nothing but ash, tree bark, and clever lies. The children stare wide-eyed. The adults nod. You sit quietly, close enough to feel the warmth of her voice, to catch the glint in her tired eyes. She remembers everything. And one day, if you're lucky, you'll remember her. You're sitting on a flat rock near the edge of the clearing, your back against a sun-warmed boulder, minding your own business. When he walks by. Not your mate. Not yet, anyway. But lately he's been watching you in that way. The long glance when you hand someone food. The half smile when you stand to stretch, spine cracking, hair spilling out of your braid like dried grass. He doesn't say much. That's the thing, the quiet ones are harder to read. And in your world, romance is as much strategy as it is spark. No one carves hearts into tree bark. There are no love songs, no candlelight dinners. Cave courtship is a whole different beast. Unwritten rules, glances across the fire, offerings of food or tools or fee of feathers. And if you're lucky, someone gives you the good meat. That's how you know it's serious. You've had your share of flings, alliances, temporary pairings forged out of practicality and maybe boredom. Some lasted a season. One lasted 3 years and ended with a migration and a mutual shrug. But this one? You're not sure yet. Courtship, as it plays out around the cave, is rarely private. You make a move and someone's cousin's sister sees it. You accept a gift and suddenly half the tribe knows before sunset. There's a kind of soft surveillance at play. Everyone's watching but pretending not to. Even now, 2 older women glance over from the hide-stretching rack, whispering behind palms. You ignore them and keep your expression neutral. He returns not long after, carrying a small bundle wrapped in fur. He drops it beside you wordlessly and walks off again, like it's no big deal. You peek inside. 2 cooked bird eggs, warm still, a sliver of honeycomb, a tiny shell with a hole drilled into the centre, ready to be strung onto something. You press your lips together to hide a smile. That's not just flirting, that's intent. You glance around to see if anyone saw. Of course they did. But no one says anything. This is how it begins. You've always found the mating rituals of your group a little strange. They're not dictated by a leader or a council. No one matches people based on social status or hunting skills alone. Instead, relationships bloom organically through gifts, cooperation, mutual protection, and sometimes through nothing but stubborn affection. And yes, alliances form. Strategic bonds that link groups together, reduce tension, encourage trades. But affection still plays a role. You've seen it. Once, a woman from the river tribe fell hard for a man from yours. Everyone expected her to return to her group after the season. She didn't. She stayed. Gave up her river fish and soft clay pots for dry meat and windy ridges. Why, no one knows. Love? Maybe. Or maybe she just liked his laugh. You walk toward the fire, shell in hand, and sit down near one of the tool makers. He's older, gruff, and always carving something. You hold out the shell. "Can you help me string this?" you ask. He snorts, already understanding. "He bring that to you?" You don't answer. He takes it anyway, threads it onto a short sinew cord, and hands it back without a word. You wear it around your wrist. Not too obvious, just visible enough. Some anthropologists have tried to chart prehistoric relationships using bones, burial sites, and DNA. They've found all kinds of patterns. Men moving between groups, women staying put, or sometimes the reverse. Some of the graves even show couples buried together, curled around each other, like they fell asleep mid-conversation. Whether they loved each other or just died at the same time is anyone's guess, but the traces are there. Human connection, even then, left footprints. There's a fringe theory that the earliest expressions of romantic attachment, touch, gift-giving, maybe even jealousy, developed alongside child-rearing when pair bonding helped keep offspring alive. You don't need the science to tell you that. You've seen it. You've lived it. You know the difference between a man who leaves once the child's weaned and one who sticks around, carrying firewood without being asked, bringing extra fish just because. That night, as the fire dims and the shadows stretch across the stone walls, he sits beside you. Not close enough to touch, but close enough that his warmth brushes your arm. You don't speak for a while. The silence is companionable, comfortable. He offers you a piece of dried fruit, one of the last from the autumn stash. You accept it, chewing slowly, savouring the sweetness. You can't remember the last time someone gave you fruit instead of hoarding it. You ask him a question, something simple. "Where did you find the eggs?" He answers with a short story about a ledge, a clever bird, and nearly falling off a rock. You laugh. He watches you, and for a second, neither of you moves. Then he reaches for your wrist, gently turns it to examine the shell. He taps it once, then nods, satisfied. The fire snaps. A few children chase each other near the back of the cave, giggling, tossing a scrap of fur like a game. One of the elders snores audibly. You lean back and close your eyes. You don't know where this will go. Maybe it's a brief season. Maybe it's the start of something longer. You've learnt not to assume permanence in anything. The cave crumbles, the weather shifts, people change. But tonight the air is warm, the food was good, and there's a soft connection humming between you and the man beside you. That's enough. Tomorrow you might share a blanket, or not. You might wake to find someone else on his mind. That's fine. You've got other things to think about. Firewood, foraging, healing roots. That mother about to give birth next week. But for now, you let yourself enjoy the possibility. That soft, fragile spark of something like affection. Like a promise you haven't spoken yet. The shell glints in the firelight, small and pale and perfect. It starts with a soft pop, wood splitting deep in the fire's belly, followed by a hiss as moisture boils off and escapes in a slow plume of smoke. You're kneeling at the fire pit again, coaxing life from dying coals, poking with a charred stick, feeding it curls of dried bark and handfuls of moss like an offering. You lean close, feel the sting of heat on your cheeks, the sting of smoke in your eyes. You blink, but keep working. The fire matters too much to give up. You've known how to build one of these since you were old enough to hold a stick, not in a theoretical way, in a very literal, survival-based, if this goes out we might freeze way. Keeping the fire alive isn't some symbolic, poetic task reserved for ceremonial elders. It's one of the most vital jobs anyone can have, and most of the time, that job falls to the women. You press your palm flat over the embers and feel the last of the stored heat. Still there, not much, but enough. You blow gently, rhythmically, lips tight, creating that perfect little wind tunnel. The moss flares. You add a stick. Another. You lean closer. The fire catches again with a satisfying crackle. Just like that, the day is safe again. You sit back on your heels, rubbing the smoke from your eyes, and glance around. The cave is quiet. Most of the group still asleep. A few low coughs echo from deeper inside. One of the toddlers stirs, then rolls over and snuggles back into a fur wrap. You let the fire rise slowly, not too fast, careful not to burn through all the kindling. You're rationing it. Always are. Fire is heat, yes, but it's also protection. It keeps the predators away, the big cats that lurk just beyond the trees, the scavengers with glowing eyes. They don't like the flame. You do. You love it. You love the way it dances in low light, the way it warms your knees while your back still shivers, the way it smells like safety. But fire's a jealous thing. It demands constant attention. You've seen what happens when someone gets careless, when the wind shifts and a spark catches in dry brush. Last spring, a neighbouring group lost their whole shelter to flame. Came to your cave with soot-smeared faces and empty hands. You took them in, of course, shared food and warmth, but ever since you've been even more careful. There's an ongoing scholarly argument about who owned the fire in prehistoric times, who managed it, who created it. A lot of older theories put fire-making in men's hands, as part of the whole hunter-dominance narrative. But more recent thinking shifts the lens. In most traditional societies, it's the women who maintain the hearth. They keep the coals alive. They pass flame from one settlement to another. They teach their daughters how to do it before they even learn to weave. And yes, you can make fire from scratch. You've done it. Rubbing stick against stick until smoke curls up like a secret. But if you don't have to, you don't. It takes too long, uses too much energy. That's why keeping the fire alive is more important than starting it. Flame continuity. It sounds boring, but it's the backbone of everything. Without fire, you don't eat. You don't see. You don't survive the cold season. There's something sacred about it too. Fire is your connection to the sky, to the ancestors, to the stories. When people die, you burn things for them. Bits of fur, beads, food. You send smoke to the heavens, or the stars, or wherever the soul is supposed to go. You don't question that part too much. You just know it feels right. You turn a few embers with your stick, watching the blackened ends glow orange. You place a flat stone near the edge to heat it. Makes a decent cooking surface for flat root mash or seared meat slivers. Later, you'll boil water in a bark bowl using hot stones dropped one at a time. It hisses, spits, darkens, but it works. Another woman joins you, your aunt maybe, or cousin. You never keep those terms straight. She grunts a good morning, adds a handful of broken branches to the pile, and sits across from you. You don't talk much, just tend the fire together. Shared silence is a comfort here, not a void to be filled. The fire fills it for you. You remember a time years ago, during a migration, when your fire went out in the middle of the night, just died. No one noticed. The wind had been strong, the wood damp. You woke up to cold air and dead coals. Everyone blamed the weather, but you blamed yourself. You'd fallen asleep too early. Since then, you've kept embers in a portable bowl, clay-lined, padded with ash, wrapped in hide. Even when you move camp, you take the fire with you. It's like carrying a living creature, one that needs feeding, breathing, space, care. There's a quirky belief in your group, half myth, half joke, that if the fire ever fully dies, your ancestors can't find you. They need the smoke, it's their trail. So keeping the fire alive isn't just for survival, it's for connection. Without it, you risk becoming invisible, forgotten. That's why when children first learn to tend it, there's a ceremony. Not big, not loud, just a moment. The first time a child successfully rekindles coals, everyone claps softly. The grandmother gives them a tiny burnt stick to wear in their pouch, a badge of honour. You still have yours. It's barely a nub now, brittle with age, but it lives beside your flint scraper like a tiny guardian. The fire is crackling nicely now, heat radiating outward. You sit cross-legged, hands stretched toward it, letting the warmth seep into your joints. Around you, the others begin to wake, stretching, yawning, coughing, mumbling morning complaints. Someone tosses a handful of dried tuber slices into the pot. Someone else brings a chunk of last night's meat. Breakfast will be bland, but hot, thanks to you. You smile softly and blow on the embers once more, just for luck. The fire lives, so do you. The birds go quiet first. That's always the sign. One moment you're listening to their endless chitter and flap, nature's gossip machine, and the next, silence. Not a stillness you can feel, but a silence you can hear, as if the forest itself is holding its breath. You don't panic right away. You just freeze, every sense leaning forward, trying to figure out what set the world on edge. You're halfway through collecting wood when it happens. Your basket, half full of dry sticks, is slung over your back, and your hands are covered in sap from a stubborn pine branch you just snapped. That's when the quiet hits, followed by the creak of something moving where it shouldn't. A branch bending under a weight that isn't yours. A rustle not made by the wind. You drop into a crouch instantly. Your breath slows. Your ears stretch in every direction. And you think, is it animal or is it human? Because honestly, both are bad. People think the predators you fear most are wolves or lions or big snakes. Those are real dangers, sure, but you can usually see them coming. They move like predators. They stalk, they growl, they pounce, but people can be quiet, people can wait in the trees, people can smile and then slit your throat over a basket of roots. That's why your tribe stays alert. Always. You've been taught from the time you could walk that survival means awareness. That danger doesn't always look like fangs and claws. Sometimes it looks like a stranger with empty hands and too many questions, or an old friend with new intentions. You shift slightly behind a bush and listen harder. There's movement again, fast, low, circling. Your fingers curl around the handle of your digging stick. Not a weapon exactly, but it could be. You've used it before, not just on animals. You press your lips together and wait. Then the wind shifts, and you smell it. Musky, hot, sharp. Not human. A cat. Big one. Close. Your heart pounds, not wildly, but with heavy, focused beats. You scan the trees and see a tail flick once, then vanish into the brush. It's not hunting you. Not yet. Probably looking for easier prey. But it saw you. Knew you saw it. That's enough to make both of you back off. This time. Still, your nerves are lit up now, like someone struck flint near your spine. You exhale and slowly stand, adjusting the basket on your back, and retreat. Deliberately, carefully. No sudden moves. You walk in a wide arc back toward the cave, every step a calculated retreat. The birds start chattering again behind you. False comfort. They weren't singing for you. By the time the cave comes into view, your muscles are humming with leftover adrenaline. You hand off the firewood without a word and settle by the fire, watching the shadows dance. You don't say what happened. You don't need to. The others see it in your face. The tightness in your jaw, the faint sheen of sweat on your temples. They nod. No questions. Grandmother glances over, squinting. "It saw you," she asks softly. You nod once. She grunts and throws another log on the fire. That's the whole debrief. Even here, in what passes for safety, you're never fully safe. The forest is always moving. Things you don't see are watching from the trees. And it's not just animals, rival groups, roving bands, scavengers who have been exiled from their own people. These are threats you have no rules for. They don't negotiate. They take. You remember a girl who didn't come back from a solo forage 2 winters ago. No one found her. No tracks, no scraps, just a drop tool on the edge of the clearing. It happens, no explanations, just absence. You carry that memory in your chest like a second rib, so you stay alert. You train the younger ones too, show them how to listen for broken patterns, how to smell for blood or fur, how to walk without leaving tracks. These aren't special skills, they're required. You live in a world where fear isn't a reaction, it's a compass. Later that evening, as the fire burns low and someone begins singing a soft, tuneless gust melody, you sit with your back against the stone wall chewing on dried meat, thinking. You don't feel angry or frightened, just awake, sharpened, like someone pulled your senses taut and left them humming. You glance toward the edge of the cave where shadows cluster thick and wonder if anything out there is still watching. Probably. Let it. There's an academic debate about how much early humans really feared predators. Some argue you learn to coexist with them, avoid their paths, scavenge their kills, maybe even mimic their behaviour to fool other groups. Others think you are in constant war with the wild. You're pretty sure the truth is somewhere in between. You don't hate predators, you respect them, and that's why you survive. You've developed your own signals, subtle, non-verbal alerts passed between foragers, hunters, caregivers. A cough, a whistle, a knock on the rock wall near the fire. These cues can mean return now, watch your back. Something's off. You teach them to the children as soon as they can remember them. Sometimes they forget. You remind them with urgency in your voice and a quick slap on the arm. Not out of anger, out of necessity. Danger doesn't announce itself, it slinks in. As you lie down for the night, fur pulled up to your chin, warmth radiating from the coals nearby, you listen. You always listen. The cave breathes, low snores, shifting limbs, the occasional sleepy cough. But beyond that, deeper still is the forest. And tonight it whispers. You close your eyes, but not completely. Sleep will come, light and shallow, with one ear open. Because out there, beyond the fire's reach, something is always moving. You're draped in a mixture of smells. Smoke, tanned hide, crushed herbs, and the ever-present funk of your own unwashed body. And somehow it works. Not in a perfume-ad kind of way, but in the way that says, this is who I am. This is what I've survived. You glance down at your wrap, a carefully stitched piece of softened deer hide, fringed at the bottom with dangling threads of woven bark and sinew. It hangs comfortably over one shoulder, tied with a knotted cord. There's a feather tucked into the knot, bright blue, stolen from a jay that didn't survive a child's slingshot last week. It's decorative, sure, but also practical. The bird was eaten. You got the feather. Everyone won. Today's chores are behind you. The fire is steady, the little ones are gnawing on roots, and the cave feels settled. So you do what any self-respecting cavewoman would do with a sliver of free time. You start sewing. You settle in a sunny patch near the cave mouth, unwrap your tool pouch and pull out your needle. Not a factory metal thing, but a carefully carved sliver of bone, eye hole included. The thread is sinew, pulled and stretched from a deer's tendon until it gleams like golden floss. You've been working on a new wrap, rabbit hide stitched together, soft and light, perfect for spring. The fur side will go in, otherwise you'll sweat your weight in a single day. It's slow work, but meditative. Fashion in your world doesn't look like runway trends or seasonal collections, but that doesn't mean it's absent. You're always aware of what people wear, who's rocking the layered frockpelt look, who's wearing a shell necklace heavy with meaning, who's still using plain bark wrap when they could be weaving in grasses for texture. Every choice says something. You tug the thread through with a satisfying hiss. Tight, strong, it'll hold. You run your thumb along the seam and nod. This piece will work, not just for warmth or modesty, but for presence. In a world where everything is so raw and so exposed, clothing becomes your shield. Your signature. There's a little girl watching you from a few feet away. She's covered in smudges and wearing a wrap that's clearly too big. It slips off one shoulder and drags behind her. She points at your needle, wide-eyed. You motion her over and let her sit beside you. She touches the bone tip reverently, then the thread. You hand her a scrap of hide and a duller needle. She tries, tongue stuck out in concentration, stabbing at the fabric like it personally offended her. It's not pretty, but it's a start. People underestimate how skilled you have to be to make these things. Tanning a hide isn't just about scraping off the fat and letting it dry. There are steps. Stretching, rubbing with ash or animal brains, yes, really. Softening, smoking, and sometimes dyeing. You've used crushed berries, clay, and charcoal to tint fabric. You once even got a reddish hue from soaking bark shavings in water for days. And the result? A one-of-a-kind piece that could withstand mud, wind, and baby vomit. There's a fringe theory floating around, more poetic than proven, that early fashion might have been your first form of rebellion. That while tools and fire were about survival, personal adornment was about choice. A way of saying, I'm not just living, I'm living as me. You believe that. Deeply. You've seen how a new shell or bone bracelet can change someone's mood. You've seen teenage girls trade feathers like currency. You've heard elders mutter with amusement when someone walks in with fur turned inside out, just to see how it looks. Even shoes, rudimentary as they are, get personal. Yours are made from thick hide with a bit of bark padding and are laced with rawhide strips. They're not cute, but they've kept your feet from turning into shredded meat during long foraging treks. You decorated the toe with a spiral pattern once, for no reason other than it made you feel like your steps had more purpose. Then there's headwear. On colder days, you pull on a cap made from squirrel pelt stitched together, complete with ear flaps. Practical, yes, but also oddly charming. Children love it. You once caught a young boy trying to copy yours with a wad of moss and a dead bird wing. It didn't work, but you respected the attempt. Fashion's not just for flair, though. It signals status. A wrap sewn from multiple animal types means you've either hunted those beasts or know someone who did. Beads made of exotic shells mean someone in your group has traded far beyond the ridge. You wear your experiences on your body, sometimes literally. You still have the wolf tooth from the kill you helped land 2 winters ago. It's tied to your belt. When you walk, it taps your thigh like a reminder. You did that. And yes, there are special pieces, ritual wraps, ceremonial cloaks, masks carved from bark or bone. They only come out during festivals, births, or rites of passage. One time you danced in a full-body piece covered in feathers and bits of dried grass, your face painted with stripes of ash. You still remember how it felt. Wild, untamed, seen, even though you tripped halfway through and landed in the cooking fire. Minor detail. You glance up from your sewing and see the little girl holding up her lumpy, uneven stitching like it's the crown jewels. You grin. Good, you say. She beams. One day she'll make her own wraps, her own belt. Maybe even a cap better than yours. Maybe not. You'll let her find out. By now the sun's lowering. Shadows creep toward the fire pit, and the smell of cooking meat drifts from deeper in the cave. You fold your wrap carefully, tuck the needle away, and rise to stretch. Your back pops like a firecrackle. Totally worth it. Someone notices the new feather in your braid and nods. No words, just acknowledgement. You nod back, that's all it takes. You've said enough without speaking, because every stitch is a sentence. Every bead is a brag. Every wrap, a quiet declaration. I survived. I contributed, I belong. And in this world, that's the only fashion statement that really matters. The sky is that deep, dreamy blue. It only turns when the sun is gone, but the stars haven't quite claimed the darkness. It hums with that kind of stillness that makes your skin feel thin, like the air could seep right into your bones. The fire has been built higher than usual tonight, and everyone is gathered around it, sitting on their haunches or flat on woven mats, eyes catching the flames, bodies rocking in time to the soft, pulsing rhythm. Someone's begun tapping on a drum. It's not a drum in the modern sense, no perfect circle, no taut store-bought hide, but a shallow bowl covered with stretched deerskin, tied tight with sinew. When struck, it gives off a low, hollow thump that you feel more than hear. It matches the heartbeat you've been carrying all day. Steady, slow, or inevitable. Tonight is a ritual night. You don't do them every evening, not even every week. But when the air shifts, when the wind smells of endings or beginnings, someone always knows, and when they do, you all follow. This is a night for remembering, for honouring, for making noise loud enough to scare off anything with teeth in the darkness. You've painted your arms in charcoal spirals and smeared a slash of red clay across your chest. Others have done the same, though no two are alike. One woman wears a bone mask that covers half her face, Another's wrapped feathers through her braids so tightly they flutter with every movement. You've tied a string of small shells around your ankle. When you dance, they'll speak. Because that's what this night is about. Movement, sound, flame. You don't speak much, but you say everything. One of the elders begins with a chant, voice low, eyes closed. You know this song. It's older than anyone here. It starts as a murmur but grows, others joining in, not perfectly in tune, but close enough. The words don't always mean anything, not in the way words normally do, but they carry something heavy. Memory, maybe grief, maybe joy, or both. Someone begins to rattle a string of dried pods. Another claps in rhythm. The kids, too young to know the meaning, begin to sway and giggle, but even their laughter becomes part of the ritual. You stand slowly, the shells at your ankle clinking with the first step, and begin to move. Your body knows the dance before your mind does. It's not choreographed. It never is, but it follows a path that feels pre-carved into your muscles. You lift your arms, turn, step back, you twist at the waist and drop low to the ground. The others join in, some stomping, some gliding, one man spinning so fast the feathers in his wrap blur into a halo. The fire roars, and the shadows stretch and twist like spirits trying to mimic you. You let go of the day, of your name, of hunger, of fear. You let your feet carry you in a circle around the flames, the shells at your ankles singing with every step. There's a warmth rising in your chest, not just from the fire, but from the togetherness. You feel the presence of others, not just those beside you, but those who've been here before, the ones who danced around this same pyre, who once stood where you stand now, the ancestors. That's who this night is really for, them. When someone dies, you mark it with a ritual like this. You dance them home. When a child is born, you dance to welcome them. When the seasons change, when the moon bleeds red, when you feel something shifting in your gut that you can't explain, you dance. Because moving like this, all together, says something the mouth never could. There's an ongoing theory among anthropologists that these early rituals helped build cohesion, bonded groups together, gave meaning to chaos, soothed fears and inspired courage. They say it was a kind of early therapy, and yeah, maybe that's part of it. But to you it's something more visceral, less clinical, more like exhaling a part of your soul and letting the fire shape it. At one point someone shrieks, a wild high sound, and throws a handful of powdered ochre into the flames. It bursts into a cloud of orange-red smoke. The group cheers. You spin, knees bending, breath shallow, sweat streaking the paint on your skin. Your heart beats in time with the drum, and you could do this all night. And sometimes you do. Later, when the fire burns down to glowing coals and the youngest dancers have curled up on mats, you sit beside your cousin and pass a strip of dried meat between you. You're both breathless, legs sore, paint smeared. You look like animals, sacred ones. You speak in low voices, recalling the moments, the best steps, the biggest laughs, the sudden hush when that shriek cut through the air. You feel clean in a way that water could never make you, like something heavy got wrung out of you and fed to the flames. One of the old women is still humming, rocking. Her fingers tap her knee in a rhythm that doesn't match anything but still sounds right. A few people are sleeping now, heads on each other's shoulders, arms tangled, still painted like warriors and ghosts. You look up at the stars scattered across the sky like spilled seeds. Somewhere out there is the next ritual, the next story, the next reason to paint your body and lose yourself in the drumbeat. But tonight, you have this: embers, sweat, laughter, and that faint echo of movement still tingling in your legs. You have your people, you have your fire, you have the rhythm, and the rhythm always remembers you. The fire's gone cold, but yet you're still awake. Lying on your side with one arm under your head, you stare into the stone wall across from you, where yesterday's ochre smudges are already fading into the rock. The night is silent now, except for the occasional crack of a shifting log or someone turning in their sleep. But your mind's busy. It always is after a ritual. Your body may be tired, but your spirit feels wired, restless, open, like the walls are thinner than usual and something older is pressing in from the outside. You don't have a word for spirituality. You don't need one. You live it. It's stitched into everything, from the way you bury the dead to how you greet the sun each morning with a hand pressed over your heart. Not because someone told you to, not because it's part of a system, but because it feels right. Because it's what your people have always done. You close your eyes, and for a moment you remember a dream you had once, of a cave that breathed, exhaling warm wind as you stepped inside. of bones that hummed when you touched them, of a river that ran backward under the full moon. You never forgot that one. Didn't feel like a dream, it felt like a message. And if it was, you still don't know from who. People outside your time, those distant scholars with their microscopes and theories, like to argue about what cave people believed. Did you worship gods? Did you pray? Did you have religion? The truth is, not quite. You don't worship so much as recognise. There's something out there. Something in the wind, the earth, the fire, the bones. Maybe it watches, maybe it doesn't. But it's there, and you respect it. You believe the cave has a spirit. So does the river. So does the sky. When lightning splits a tree and the fire starts, you know it's not just a thing, it's a message. When the moon turns red, you don't just say, "So that's unusual." You listen, because you believe the world is speaking in its own language, and it's rude not to answer. You once watched a man climb a hill during a storm, raise his arms, and scream into the wind like it was a rival he wanted to fight. Later, he said he felt chosen. A deer walked right past him the next morning, practically offering itself. Coincidence? Maybe, but no one argued. He still wears that deer's antler on a cord around his neck. Says it whispers to him sometimes when he's alone. You believe him. Spirits visit in dreams. They arrive in animal form, owls, wolves, snakes. You don't see them with your eyes, but you know when they're near. Like the time a child woke sobbing, claiming a bear stood over her as she slept. She'd been sick for days, fever high, shallow breathing. The next morning she was fine. Perfect. Like the fever had been taken. The adult said nothing, but someone quietly burned sweetgrass at the cave's mouth, just in case. Your people honour death with stone tokens, small carvings left on ledges or tucked into tree hollows. Sometimes you bury the dead, sometimes you burn them. It depends on the season, on the signs, but always you speak to the spirit as it leaves. Go in peace, come back if you want. We'll know it's you, and sometimes you think you do know. A child born with a familiar mark on her wrist, a dream with a voice you recognise, a raven that won't leave the camp. Some fringe researchers say you were animists, that you saw everything as alive. Trees, rocks, wind, fire. And while the word doesn't exist in your world, the feeling does. You do talk to the trees. You thank the fire. You apologise to the river when you slip and swear at it. You believe a stone isn't just a stone if it's the one your grandmother gave you before she died. You keep that stone wrapped in a bit of hide at your waist. You rub it when you're worried. You've taken it into every major moment of your life. Your first hunt, your first birth, your first night alone in the woods. It's smooth now, worn from years of holding. That's power. Not because it's magic, because it matters. There's a spot in the cave wall where moisture forms a shape like a face. Not an exact one, but a suggestion. Eyes, nose, a curve of a mouth. You've seen it change with the light. Some say it's the spirit of the cave itself. Watching, protecting. You always touch that spot gently when you pass. Just a brush of your fingers, a quiet hello. And then there are the bones. So many bones. From meals, from tools, from those who came before. They're not just refuse. You don't toss them aside, you stack them carefully. Sometimes paint them, sometimes sleep near them. You believe they remember, that they carry echoes of voices long gone. Tonight, after the dancing and the chants, someone left a carved bone near the fire. A tiny wolf with teeth bared, eyes hollowed out. No one knows who made it. No one claims it. That's how you know it's a gift to the spirit world. You leave it there. It doesn't belong to the living anymore. You roll over and face the fire, now coals glowing like tiny suns. Your heart has finally slowed. Your breath matches the pulse of the night. You feel grounded again. Not floating, not haunted, just held. You whisper something under your breath, not a prayer, not really, just a message tossed into the dark. I'm here, I'm listening, remember me. Then you close your eyes, and for a moment, you think you hear the cave breathe back. You feel the cold before you open your eyes, an ache in your joints, a tightness in your chest, the way your breath fogs the air when you exhale. Morning has broken, but not gently. It's winter, and the fire didn't last the night. You reach for your fur wrap without sitting up, dragging it tighter over your shoulders, and blink into the pale blue of dawn filtering through the cave mouth. Someone's already outside, scraping frost off a flat stone with a bone blade. It sings like a tiny violin every time it hits ice. Winter changes everything. It tightens time, shortens light, shrinks the days into a handful of urgent tasks and long, heavy nights. You can't forage as freely, you can't go far, and you don't waste movement. What you do with purpose. Your group draws inward, closer to the hearth, closer to one another. It's a season of smoke, of hunger, of stillness wrapped in animal skin and stubborn hope. You sit up slowly, back cracking, knees stiff. Your muscles scream in a quiet, familiar way. You're not old, not really, but winter ages you fast. You shuffle toward the fire pit and find the last coal still faintly alive under ash. Good. That'll save you an hour. You toss in a few pine shavings and blow gently. Smoke curls up. A weak orange glow returns, like magic if you didn't know better. Your cousin joins you, arms full of dry sticks she brought in from the covered pile near the ridge. Cold enough to freeze my thoughts, she mutters, teeth chattering. You both grin without humour. You add kindling, and soon a low flame shivers up and dances. The others will stir when it grows strong enough to warm their faces. Food is tight now. You have dried meat, yes, and a few smoked fish stored in a woven basket tied high in a tree outside. But the good roots are buried too deep to reach, the greens are gone, and the mushrooms don't grow. Every bite matters. You count portions with your eyes, not your hands. When someone skips a meal, it's noticed. Not judged, just noted. You chew slowly through your breakfast, a strip of chewy venison, a handful of cold-boiled tuber from yesterday, and one shriveled berry. It's not satisfying, but it's enough. For now, the seasons rule everything, and winter rules like a cold-blooded queen. There's an ongoing scholarly debate about how deeply early humans understood seasonal patterns. Did you track time with the stars? With animal migrations? With temperature and instinct alone? You're not sure what future minds will conclude, but you know your people read the world like a book, written in frost, fur, moonlight, and the colour of bird feathers. You follow signs, the way the elk fur thickens weeks before the cold hits, the sudden silence of frogs, the behaviour of ants, and of course the sky. You track the sun's position, the moon's changing face. Your people call the longest night the wolf night, when the spirits walk low and the cave must burn all through the dark to keep them from slipping in. You prepare for winter long before it arrives. Weeks ago you helped dry meat, crush berries into paste, soak bark for fibre to patch holes in your wraps. You smoked fish, you salted hides, you made a new pair of foot wrappings from rabbit fur because your old ones were worn through, and you still barely feel ready. One woman in your group hasn't stopped coughing since the frost came. You're watching her closely. She's thinner than she should be. Last night, she barely ate. You sat beside her this morning and pressed a warm stone to her chest. She smiled, but her breath rattled like dry leaves in wind. You don't say anything yet, but you worry. Winter tests your group's cohesion. Everyone is more irritable, more sensitive, more easily offended. You've seen friendships strain over the last piece of roasted marrow. You've seen people snap and stomp off into the cold, only to return 2 hours later with frostbitten fingers and the silent admission that they were wrong. Today the goal is simple. Gather wood, check the traps, boil the last bits of marrow out of old bones. You go with 2 others down the icy path toward the stream, where a net was set 3 days ago. The snow crunches under your feet, sharp and satisfying. Your nose runs, your breath fogs, you walk fast to stay warm. The net's frozen into place, but you work together to break it free. Inside 2 small fish and something unidentifiable, slimy and sad. Not much, but something. You'll boil it with herbs to make broth. Warm liquid fills the belly, even if the calories are few. You return just as the sun reaches its highest point, low and weak, barely lighting the trees. In summer, that sun sears your skin and stretches the day wide. In winter, it's like a candle flickering from far away. Back at the cave, the children huddle under furs, noses poking out, eyes wide. One of them laughs when you bring in the fish, but it's the kind of laughter that's too loud, eager, desperate. You know that laugh. It means hunger. You pass around the fish, cleaned and roasted quickly over flame, meat falling apart. Everyone gets a bite. You eat yours without tasting it. Your mind is already on the next meal, the next wood run, the next way to stretch what little you have. But winter's not all cruelty. Sometimes the snow falls soft and quiet, like feathers. Sometimes the stars shine so clearly it hurts. Sometimes you lie on your back wrapped in fur, and look up through the cave mouth to see a sky so big it makes your heart ache. In those moments, you remember why you stay, why you fight to live another day. A child falls asleep in your lap that evening. You stroke her hair absently, eyes half closed, breath matching hers. She's warm, for now. The fire crackles, the snow outside glows blue. The cave holds you close like a sheltering beast. You've made it another day, and in winter, that is everything. You can feel it before it even starts. A low tug in your belly, like a cord tightening just behind your navel. It's familiar, however, this ache. Not sharp, not unbearable, just steady and deep, like the earth itself is whispering inside your bones. You glance up at the moon, high and round and glowing above the treetops, and think, of course it's tonight. Your cycle has returned. Again. You sigh. There's no secrecy about this in your world. No whispering, no shame. When your blood comes, it comes. You handle it. You talk about it, you prepare for it, and you move through it like everything else, openly, honestly, sometimes miserably, sometimes with pride. You've got a pouch tucked under your fur wrap that holds strips of soft moss and cloth, dried and woven thin. Not glamorous, but it works. You reach for it automatically. You mention it to your cousin as she passes by, son, and she just nods, tossing you a knowing look. Moon's fat, she says. All of us will be bleeding by dawn. You smile faintly. It's true. Many of you cycle together, part biology, part mystery. The moon tracks you, or you track the moon. Either way, it feels like a dance. There's an old story in your group that says women carry the moon inside them, that when the moon swells, it pulls your blood to the surface. When it shrinks, your body sleeps again. It's not science, but it might as well be. It makes as much sense as anything else, and it feels true. That's the important part. Tonight, you step away from the cave with two other women, both walking slowly, both with that same quiet grimace that says, "Don't touch me unless you want to lose a finger." You all carry moss pouches and extra furs and head to a small shelter tucked beneath a ledge, a short walk from the main fire. It's not exile, it's space. The blood hut, the moon shelter. It has no official name, but everyone knows what it's for. This is where you rest, where you breathe, where you bleed. Here, you don't have to tend children or gather wood or clean fish guts off the fire rocks. You just exist. And you bleed. Freely. No one interrupts you here. No one asks questions. No one tells you to push through it. You lie down, wrap up in furs, press warm stones to your belly, and groan with abandon. There's debate among modern researchers about these kinds of practices. Some think menstrual huts were oppressive, tools of exclusion, fear of blood, punishment for being female. But others argue the opposite, that they were spaces of power, connection, even joy. Honestly, it depends on the culture, but for you it feels like a gift. A pause button carved out of the brutal tempo of survival. One of the women hums, a simple tune, soft and slow. You don't know the words. Maybe there aren't any. The other rocks side to side like she's lulling herself. The fire here is small but warm, flickering against the stone. You watch the shadows rise and fall on your neighbour's face. You see yourself in her. In all of them. You remember your first time. The blood came fast, unexpected, while you were climbing for berries. You thought you were dying. Thought a thorn had opened something too deep to fix. You limped back to the cave, crying, shaking, only to be greeted with laughter. Not cruel, but warm. Your aunt handed you a moss wrap. "Welcome," she said. That was it. No lecture, just inclusion. And there are rituals too, small ones. Sometimes you mark the cave wall with a red handprint. Sometimes someone burns sage or sweetgrass, if there's any to spare. Sometimes you just lie in silence and listen to the wind move through the trees like a voice too big to understand. You've noticed that some people avoid eye contact with the blood shelter. Not out of fear, but awe. Like they're seeing something sacred they don't want to disturb. There's a belief, half whispered, half true, that during your bleeding days, you're closer to the other side, that your dreams are clearer, that your anger carries more weight. You've leaned into that a few times, said something with just enough edge that the others backed off. No one argues with a woman mid-cycle. It's not wise. You stretch your legs toward the fire and press your palm flat to your belly, feeling the slow, rhythmic cramping. You wince, then settle. Pain is part of the process. It doesn't mean something's wrong, it means something's working. Your cousin tosses you a strip of bark-chewed root that dulls pain if you suck on it long enough. Tastes is awful. You chew it anyway. You pass around a ball of dried fruit and fat, the good kind of snack, one someone saved for this exact night. You take a bite, savour it. Even bleeding, even aching, you are still part of something that nourishes you. There's a quirky belief in your group that the blood you lose doesn't just disappear. It seeps into the ground and feeds the earth, makes trees grow taller, makes roots sweeter. You don't know if it's true, but you've always liked it. The idea that even when your body seems to be breaking down, it's giving something back. Eventually the pain dulls to a background throb. You lie back on the mat of woven grass and fur, watching smoke twist up toward the rocky ceiling. Your sisters are already dozing. The fire crackles, the stars outside blink behind thin clouds, and your body, this wild, bleeding, wise body, softens into rest. You're not ashamed of the blood. You're not afraid of it. You carry it like a tide inside you, knowing it will return again and again as surely as the moon. And when it does, you'll be ready. Your calves are on fire, your shoulders ache, and your hands look like you just tried to hug a porcupine. But honestly, you feel incredible, alive, powerful, like your body was built not just for survival, but for motion. You're standing at the ridge above the cave now, heart pounding from the steep climb, lungs drinking in the thin morning air. Below you, the forest stretches out like a wrinkled green quilt, the mist peeling back as the sun climbs higher. You've already been up for hours. This morning you were on wood duty, again, which meant lugging branches down from the ridge where the pines grow tall and dry, and the good wood falls like gifts after a storm. It's not glamorous work, but it's necessary. You balanced a bundle twice your weight across your shoulders, feet sliding in the mud, legs burning with every step, and you did it barefoot. Because shoes are for icy days, not climbing ones. You crouch now, resting, and press your fingers into your calves. Solid. Hard as rock. You remember when you were a girl and your legs were all knobby knees and thin skin. Not anymore. Now your thighs could crack a tortoise shell and your forearms have lines of muscle you never even noticed forming. It didn't happen in a week, it happened through years of movement. Daily, relentless, exhausting, natural. You bend to pick up another bundle and shift it onto your back. You feel the weight, but you don't fight it. You move with it. This is just what your body does. Modern people like to fantasize about prehistoric life as either a brutal death march or some kind of leafy paradise where everyone frolicked through fields of berries. Truth is mostly walking. Endless walking, squatting, lifting, climbing, crawling, stretching, running, occasionally. Especially when there's a predator, but mostly just moving. Your average day is a full body workout and you don't even think about it. There's no gym, no leg day. Every day is leg day. You haul the wood back toward camp, and when you reach the slope you don't stop. You lean forward and let gravity help. Your knees bend, your feet find the rocks. You descend like you've done it 1,000 times, because you have. There's a scholarly debate, of course there is, about whether prehistoric women were as physically active as men. The old narrative. Men did the hard stuff. Hunted, carried, travelled. Women just gathered and stayed close to camp. But recent studies of female skeletal remains tell a different story. Bone density analysis shows that the average cave woman had strength levels that rivaled elite modern athletes. Your arms were built by hours of grinding, carrying, digging, tanning. Your legs by distance. You're not weaker, you're just not carrying a spear today. You reach the cave, dump your bundle near the fire, and stretch your arms overhead. Someone whistles at you, half teasing, half impressed. You grin, flex your bicep dramatically, then roll your eyes and sit to rest. The other woman beside you laughs and tosses you a water skin. Even rest doesn't mean stillness. While you drink, you check your toenails for cracks, rub your palms with grease to soften the calluses, adjust your wrap so it doesn't dig into your shoulder. The wear and tear never stops, but you've learned to stay ahead of it. If you don't stretch your hips daily, your joints stiffen. If you don't soak your feet every few days, they crack and bleed. Self-care here means maintenance, not indulgence. Later in the afternoon, you lead a younger girl on a foraging trip along the riverbank. You crouch, dig, rise, squat again, over and over for hours. You move through thorny brush, push through tall grass, jump across a narrow stream. She struggles to keep up, panting, slipping. You offer her a hand only when she really needs it. You remember how your mentors did the same for you. The point isn't comfort, it's strength. Repetition. Learning how to use your body as a tool. You spot a bird's nest on a high branch and climb the tree without a second thought. Fingers gripping the bark, feet hugging the trunk, back bent just enough to keep you from tipping. You reach the nest, find it empty, and climb back down slowly. When you hit the ground, you feel the impact ripple up your bones. But it's not pain, it's presence. Your body reminding you it's alive. Sometimes you lie awake at night and press your fingers to your ribs, your thighs, your shoulders, just to feel the durability of yourself. You've had bruises that lasted weeks. Blisters that peeled and healed and peeled again. Your hip bears a deep scar from when you slipped on wet stone and gashed it on a flint shard. You remember the blood, the sting, the healing. That scar taught you caution and respect for momentum. There's a quirky tradition in your group where scars are told like stories, not in boastful tones but with reverence. This one, boar tusk when I tried to save the meat sack. That one, gave birth in the snow, slipped on ice. It's not about pain, it's about resilience, about marking what you've endured and knowing your body held on. By sunset, you've moved for miles, if not in distance, then in effort. You've hauled, bent, squatted, stretched and lifted. You've sweated, you've bled a little. You're not exercising, you're just living. As night falls and you sit by the fire, legs stretched out, sipping warm broth, your body hums, not with exhaustion, but with purpose. Every ache is earned. Every bruise means something. You're not ornamental, you're not fragile, you are made of sinew and story, bone and burden, motion and memory. And tomorrow, you'll move again. It's a slow morning, the kind where even the birds seem reluctant to start chirping. The fire burns low, casting a sleepy glow across the cave walls, and no one's really in a rush to do anything, which is rare. You're reclining on your side, chewing a piece of dried root, watching a pair of teens bicker about who gets to carry the digging stick on the next forage run. The boy insists it's his turn. The girl swats him with a bundle of moss and says he can carry the water instead. Honestly, she's right. There's a common belief among outsiders that everyone in your world had rigid roles. Men hunted, women gathered. Simple, clean, boring. But here, inside your actual life, it doesn't work like that. Roles shift like river stones. Sometimes they fit one hand, sometimes the other. Sometimes both. You've hunted. You've seen women lead migrations, track game, even kill. You've seen men gather roots, soothe infants, sow hide. Nothing is locked in place except survival. And survival has no preference for gender. This morning the group splits off for different tasks. One man stays behind to help scrape hides. A girl no older than 12 follows two adults out with spears, ready to learn. An older woman limps to the stream holding a net and grumbling about the cold. You join a smaller crew heading uphill toward the berry thickets, not because you're the gatherer, but because you remember where the best patches are. Memory trumps muscle today. You walk beside a man with a limp, a quiet type who rarely speaks unless he's naming tracks. You admire that about him. You don't have to fill the silence. The two of you share glances, observations, the occasional head tilt towards the broken stems or animal scat. That's it. That's the work. You rid the land together. As you crouch beside a half-buried cluster of roots, he asks, "Why do you come with us so often?" It's not a challenge, just a question. You pause, straightening your spine. "'Cause I'm good at it," you say, and that's that. Tonight, after the dancing and the chants, someone left a carved bone near the fire. A tiny wolf, with teeth bared, eyes hollowed out. No one knows who made it. No one claims it. That's how you know it's a gift to the spirit world. You leave it there. It doesn't belong to the living anymore. You roll over and face the fire, now coals glowing like tiny suns. Your heart has finally slowed. Your breath matches the pulse of the night. You feel grounded again, not floating, not haunted, just held. You whisper something under your breath, not a prayer, not really, just a message tossed into the dark. "I'm here, I'm listening, remember me," then you close your eyes. And for a moment, you think you hear the cave breathe back. You feel the cold before you open your eyes, an ache in your joints, a tightness in your chest, the way your breath fogs the air when you exhale. Morning has broken, but not gently. It's winter, and the fire didn't last the night. You reach for your fur wrap without sitting up, dragging it tighter over your shoulders, and blink into the pale blue of dawn filtering through the cave mouth. Someone's already outside, scraping frost off a flat stone with a bone blade. It sings like a tiny violin every time it hits ice. Winter changes everything. It tightens time, shortens light, shrinks the days into a handful of urgent tasks and long, heavy nights. You can't forage as freely, you can't go far, and you don't waste movement. What you do with purpose. Your group draws inward, closer to the hearth, closer to one another. It's a season of smoke, of hunger, of stillness wrapped in animal skin and stubborn hope. You sit up slowly, back cracking, knees stiff. Your muscles scream in a quiet, familiar way. You're not old, not really, but winter ages you fast. You shuffle toward the fire pit and find the last coals still faintly alive under ash. Good. That'll save you an hour. You toss in a few pine shavings and blow gently. Smoke curls up. A weak orange glow returns, like magic if you didn't know better. Your cousin joins you, arms full of dry sticks she brought in from the covered pile near the ridge. Cold enough to freeze my thoughts, she mutters, teeth chattering. You both grin without humour. You add kindling, and soon a low flame shivers up and dances. The others will stir when it grows strong enough to warm their faces. Food is tight now. You have dried meat? Yes. And a few smoked fish stored in a woven basket tied high in a tree outside. But the good roots are buried too deep to reach, the greens are gone, and the mushrooms don't grow. Every bite matters. You count portions with your eyes, not your hands. When someone skips a meal, it's noticed. Not judged, just noted. You chew slowly through your breakfast. A strip of chewy venison, a handful of cold-boiled tuber from yesterday, and one shriveled berry. It's not satisfying, but it's enough. For now. The seasons rule everything, and winter rules like a cold-blooded queen. There's an ongoing scholarly debate about how deeply early humans understood seasonal patterns. Did you track time with the stars? With animal migrations? With temperature and instinct alone? You're not sure what future minds will conclude, but you know your people read the world like a book, written in frost, fur, moonlight, and the colour of bird feathers. You follow signs, the way the elk fur thickens weeks before the cold hits, the sudden silence of frogs, the behaviour of ants, and of course the sky. You track the sun's position, the moon's changing face to Ian. Your people call the longest night the wolf night, when the spirits walk low and the cave must burn all through the dark to keep them from slipping in. You prepare for winter long before it arrives. Weeks ago you helped dry meat, crush bundle berries into paste, soak bark for fibre to patch holes in your wraps. You smoked fish, you salted hides, you made a new pair of foot wrappings from rabbit fur because your old ones were worn through, and you still barely feel ready. One woman in your group hasn't stopped coughing since the frost came. You're watching her closely. She's thinner than she should be. Last night she barely ate. You sat beside her this morning and pressed a warm stone to her chest. She smiled, but her breath rattled like dry leaves in wind. You don't say anything yet, but you worry. Winter tests your group's cohesion. Everyone is more irritable, more sensitive, more easily offended. You've seen friendships strain over the last piece of roasted marrow. You've seen people snap and stomp off into the cold, only to return 2 hours later with frostbitten fingers and the silent admission that they were wrong. Today the goal is simple. Gather wood, check the traps, boil the last bits of marrow out of old bones. You go with 2 others down the icy path toward the stream, where a net was set 3 days ago. The snow crunches under your feet, sharp and satisfying. Your nose runs, your breath fogs. You walk fast to stay warm. The net's frozen into place, but you work together to break it free. Inside, 2 small fish and something unidentifiable, slimy and sad. Not much, but something. You'll boil it with herbs to make broth. Warm liquid fills the belly, even if the calories are few. You return just as the sun reaches its highest point, low and weak, barely lighting the trees. In summer, that sun sears your skin and stretches the day wide. In winter, it's like a candle flickering from far away. Back at the cave, the children huddle under firs, noses poking out, eyes wide. One of them laughs when you bring in the fish, but it's the kind of laughter that's too loud, eager, desperate. You know that laugh. It means hunger. You pass around the fish, cleaned and roasted quickly over flame, meat falling apart. Everyone gets a bite. You eat yours without tasting it. Your mind is already on the next meal, the next wood run, the next way to stretch what little you have. But winter's not all cruelty. Sometimes the snow falls soft and quiet like feathers. Sometimes the stars shine so clearly it hurts. Sometimes you lie on your back wrapped in fur and look up through the cave mouth to see a sky so big it makes your heart ache. In those moments you remember why you stay, why you fight to live another day. A child falls asleep in your lap that evening. You stroke her hair absently, eyes half closed, breath matching hers. She's warm, for now. The fire crackles, the snow outside glows blue. The cave holds you close like a sheltering beast. You've made it another day. And in winter, that is everything. You can feel it before it even starts. A low tug in your belly, like a cord tightening just behind your navel. It's familiar now, this ache. Not sharp, not unbearable, just steady and deep, like the earth itself is whispering inside your bones. You glance up at the moon, high and round and glowing above the treetops, and think, of course it's tonight. Your cycle has returned. Again. You sigh. There's no secrecy about this in your world. No whispering, no shame. When your blood comes, it comes. You handle it. You talk about it, you prepare for it, and you move through it like everything else, openly, honestly, sometimes miserably, sometimes with pride. You've got a pouch tucked under your fur wrap that holds strips of soft moss and cloth, dried and woven thin. Not glamorous, but it works. You reach for it automatically. You mention it to your cousin as she passes by, and she just nods, tossing you a knowing look. "Moon's fat," she says. "All of us will be bleeding by dawn." You smile faintly. It's true. Many of you cycle together, part biology, part mystery. The moon tracks you, or you track the moon. Either way, it feels like a dance. There's an old story in your group that says women carry the moon inside them, that when the moon swells, it pulls your blood to the surface. When it shrinks, your body sleeps again. It's not science, but it might as well be. It makes as much sense as anything else, and it feels true. That's the important part. Tonight you step away from the cave with two other women, both walking slowly, both with that same quiet grimace that says, "Don't touch me unless you want to lose a finger." You all carry moss pouches and extra furs and head to a small shelter tucked beneath a ledge, a short walk from the main fire. It's not exile, it's space, the blood hut, the moon shelter. It has no official name, but everyone knows what it's for. This is where you rest, where you breathe, where you bleed. Here, you don't have to tend children or gather wood or clean fish guts off the fire rocks. You just exist, and you bleed, freely. No one interrupts you here, no one asks questions, no one tells you to push through it. You lie down, wrap up in furs, press warm stones to your belly, and groan with abandon. There's debate among modern researchers about these kinds of practices. Some think menstrual huts were oppressive, tools of exclusion, fear of blood, punishment for being female. But others argue the opposite, that they were spaces of power, connection, even joy. Honestly, it depends on the culture. But for you it feels like a gift, a pause button carved out of the brutal tempo of survival. One of the women hums, a simple tune, soft and slow. You don't know the words. Maybe there aren't any. The other rocks side to side like she's lulling herself. The fire here is small but warm, flickering against the stone. You watch the shadows rise and fall on your neighbour's face. You see yourself in her, in all of them. You remember your first time. The blood came fast, unexpected, while you were climbing for berries. You thought you were dying, thought a thorn had opened something too deep to fix. You limped back to the cave, crying, shaking, only to be greeted with laughter. Not cruel, but warm. Your aunt handed you a moss wrap. "Welcome," she said. That was it. No lecture, just inclusion. And there are rituals too, small ones. Sometimes you mark the cave wall with a red handprint. Sometimes someone burns sage or sweetgrass if there's any to spare. Sometimes you just lie in silence and listen to the wind move through the trees, like a voice too big to understand. You have noticed that some people avoid eye contact with the blood shelter. Not out of fear, but awe, like they're seeing something sacred they don't want to disturb. There's a belief, half whispered, half true, that during your bleeding days you're closer to the other side, that your dreams are clearer, that your anger carries more weight. You've leaned into that a few times, said something with just enough edge that the others backed off. No one argues with a woman mid-cycle. It's not wise. You stretch your legs toward the fire and press your palm flat to your belly, feeling the slow rhythmic cramping. You wince, then settle. Pain is part of the process. It doesn't mean something's wrong, it means something's working. Your cousin tosses you a strip of bark-chewed root that dulls pain if you suck on it long enough. Tastes awful. You chew it anyway. You pass around a ball of dried fruit and fat, the good kind of snack, one someone saved for this exact night. You take a bite, savour it. Even bleeding, even aching, you are still part of something that nourishes you. There's a quirky belief in your group that the blood you lose doesn't just disappear. It seeps into the ground and feeds the earth, makes trees grow taller, makes roots sweeter. You don't know if it's true, but you've always liked it. The idea that even when your body seems to be breaking down, it's giving something back. Eventually, the pain dulls to a background throb. You lie back on the mat of woven grass and fur, watching smoke twist up toward the rocky ceiling. Your sisters are already dozing. The fire crackles, the stars outside blink behind thin clouds, and your body, this wild, bleeding, wise body, softens into rest. You're not ashamed of the blood. You're not afraid of it. You carry it like a tide inside you, knowing it will return again and again as surely as the moon. And when it does, you'll be ready. Your calves are on fire, your shoulders ache, and your hands look like you just tried to hug a porcupine. But honestly, you feel incredible, alive, powerful, like your body was built not just for survival, but for motion. You're standing at the ridge above the cave now, heart pounding from the steep climb, lungs drinking in the thin morning air. Below you, the forest stretches out like a wrinkled green quilt, the mist peeling back as the sun climbs higher. You've already been up for hours. This morning you were on wood duty. Again. Which meant lugging branches down from the ridge where the pines grow tall and dry, and the good wood falls like gifts after a storm. It's not glamorous work, but it's necessary. You balanced a bundle twice your weight across your shoulders, feet sliding in the mud, legs burning with every step, and you did it barefoot. Because shoes are for icy days, not climbing ones. You crouch now, resting, and press your fingers into your calves. Solid, hard as rock. You remember when you were a girl and your legs were all knobby knees and thin skin. Not anymore. Now your thighs could crack a tortoise shell and your forearms have lines of muscle you never even noticed forming. It didn't happen in a week. It happened through years of movement. Daily, relentless, exhausting, natural. You bend to pick up another bundle and shift it onto your back. You feel the weight, but you don't fight it. You move with it. This is just what your body does. Modern people like to fantasize about prehistoric life as either a brutal death march or some kind of leafy paradise where everyone frolicked through the fields of berries. Truth? It's mostly walking. Endless walking, squatting, lifting, climbing, crawling, stretching, running occasionally. Especially when there's a predator, but mostly just moving. Your average day is a full body workout and you don't even think about it. There's no gym, no leg day. Every day is leg day. You haul the wood back toward camp, and when you reach the slope you don't stop, you lean forward and let gravity help. Your knees bend, your feet find the rocks, you descend like you've done it 1,000 times, because you have. There's a scholarly debate, of course there is, about whether prehistoric women were as physically active as men. The old narrative? Men did the hard stuff. Hunted, carried, travelled. Women just gathered and stayed close to camp. But recent studies of female skeletal remains tell a different story. Bone density analysis shows that the average cave woman had strength levels that rivaled elite modern athletes. Your arms were built by hours of grinding, carrying, digging, tanning. Your legs by distance. You're not weaker. You're just not carrying a spear today. You reach the cave, dump your bundle near the fire, and stretch your arms overhead. Someone whistles at you, half teasing, half impressed. You grin, flex your bicep dramatically, then roll your eyes and sit to rest. The other woman beside you laughs and tosses you a water skin. Even rest doesn't mean dullness. While you drink, you check your toenails for cracks, rub your palms with grease to soften the calluses, adjust your wrap so it doesn't dig into your shoulder. The wear and tear never stops, but you've learned to stay ahead of it. If you don't stretch your hips daily, your joints stiffen. If you don't soak your feet every few days, they crack and bleed. Self-care here means maintenance, not indulgence. Later in the afternoon, you lead a younger girl on a foraging trip along the riverbank. You crouch, dig, rise, squat again, over and over for hours. You move through thorny brush, push through tall grass, jump across a narrow stream. She struggles to keep up, panting, slipping. You offer her hand only when she really needs it. You remember how your mentors did the same for you. The point isn't comfort, it's strength, repetition, learning how to use your body as a tool. You spot a bird's nest on a high branch and climb the tree without a second thought. Fingers gripping the bark, feet hugging the trunk, back bent just enough to keep you from tipping. You reach the nest, find it empty, and climb back down slowly. When you hit the ground, you feel the impact ripple up your bones. But it's not pain, it's presence. your body reminding you it's alive. Sometimes you lie awake at night and press your fingers to your ribs, your thighs, your shoulders, just to feel the durability of yourself. You've had bruises that lasted weeks, blisters that peeled and peeled again. Your hip bears a deep scar from when you slipped on wet stone and gashed it on a flint shard. You remember the blood, the sting, the healing. That scar taught you caution and respect for momentum. There's a quirky tradition in your group where scars are told like stories, not in boastful tones, but with reverence. This one, boar tusk, when I tried to save the meat sack. That one, gave birth in the snow, slipped on ice. It's not about pain, it's about resilience, about marking what you've endured and knowing your body held on. By sunset, you've moved for miles, if not in distance, then in effort. You've hauled, bent, squatted, stretched and lifted. You've sweated, you've bled a little. You're not exercising, you're just living. As night falls and you sit by the fire, legs stretched out, sipping warm broth, your body hums, not with exhaustion, but with purpose. Every ache is earned, every bruise means something. You are not ornamental, you are not fragile. You are made of sinew and story, bone and burden, motion and memory. And tomorrow, you'll move again. It's a slow morning, the kind where even the birds seem reluctant to start chirping. The fire burns low, casting a sleepy glow across the cave walls, and no one's really in a rush to do anything, which is rare. You're reclining on your side, chewing a piece of dried root, watching a pair of teens bicker about who gets to carry the digging stick on the next forage run. The boy insists it's his turn. The girl swats him with a bundle of moss and says he can carry the water instead. Honestly, she's right. There's a common belief among outsiders that everyone in your world had rigid roles. Men hunted, women gathered. Simple, clean, boring. But here, inside your actual life, it doesn't work like that. Roles shift like rivers of stones. Sometimes they fit one hand, sometimes the other, sometimes both. You've hunted. You've seen women lead migrations, track game, even kill. You've seen men gather roots, soothe infants, sow hide. Nothing is locked in place except survival. And survival has no preference for gender. This morning the group splits off for different tasks. One man stays behind to help scrape hides. A girl no older than 12 follows 2 adults out with spears, ready to learn. An older woman limps to the stream, holding a net and grumbling about the cold. You join a smaller crew heading uphill toward the berry thickets. Not because you're the gatherer, but because you remember where the best patches are. Memory trumps muscle today. You walk beside a man with a limp, a quiet type who rarely speaks unless he's naming tracks. You admire that about him. You don't have to fill the silence. The two of you share glances, observations, the occasional head tilt toward a broken stems or animal scat. That's it. That's the work. You read the land together. As you crouch beside a half-buried cluster of roots, he asks, "Why do you come with us so often?" It's not a challenge, just a question. You pause, straightening your spine. "'Cause I'm good at it," you say, and that's that. You pass around water, small strips of dried meat. It's not much, but enough to say, "We see you. You're not prey." The woman speaks more than the man, says they lost someone to sickness, says the child hasn't eaten properly in 2 days, says they've walked through 3 valleys and seen no one. Not since the big storm. You believe most of it. Maybe not all, but enough. Later, as dusk falls and the cave starts to smell of boiled roots and wood smoke, the child curls against the fire and sleeps. The woman helps clean bark. The man mends a net. No one asked them to, they just knew. You nod to yourself. That's a good sign. The ones who expect to be fed without offering anything. Those are the ones you don't keep around. You think about the risks. Strangers bring new bacteria, new habits. They could be scouts for a bigger group, or they could just be people like you, desperate or tired or hoping for a break. You remember another group from a winter years back. They came hungry and left with half your meat. One of them took a blade when he thought no one was watching. You never saw them again. You still remember the rage that simmered after they were gone. How it felt like betrayal, even though it was survival. Sometimes both. But these 3, they don't feel like a threat, at least not today. That night you sleep with one eye open, not from fear, just vigilance. You rest your head on your arm and keep your digging stick close. You watch the fire, you listen to the rhythm of breathing around you, who snores, who shifts, who doesn't move at all. The child coughs once in her sleep. You rise quietly and adjust the fur over her body. Her skin is hot, fevered. You tuck a cool stone near her neck. The woman sees you and nods, lips tight. You nod back. You're not family, not tribe, but for tonight, you're something close. Tomorrow, who knows? But for now, their fire is shared, and that means something. It's barely light when the child dies. She passes quietly, curled beside the fire, one tiny hand still resting on the wolf-hide cloak that someone tucked over her in the night. You feel it before you hear anything, just a shift in the cave's rhythm. The air gets thicker, stiller. The breathing slows. And then the woman's voice cuts through the silence. Not a scream, not a sob, just a sound thin and hollow, like something breaking from deep inside her chest. You move without thinking, not rushing, not shouting. You've seen death before, you've seen it many ways. Fast, violent, quiet, slow. But this kind, soft, expected, unstoppable. This kind is different. It settles on your skin like ash. The woman cradles the child in her lap, rocking back and forth, eyes squeezed shut. The man sits beside them, not touching, just watching, with his hands clenched so tight the tendons pop. No one speaks, no one needs to. Death has its own gravity. Words would just float useless in its pull. You kneel nearby, close, but not too close. Enough to be present. Enough to say, we see this. We feel this. You're not alone. The others gather in slow waves, one by one, surrounding the small, still body. There's no rush. There never is with death. The body's not going anywhere. It can wait. And the spirit? That left long before the breath stopped. There's a ritual for this. Of course there is. Maybe not the same every time, but the bones of it remain. You start by gathering ochre, red and soft, like blood turned to dust, and gently brush it across the child's forehead, her palms, her feet. Someone adds charcoal, smudging it under her eyes in twin lines of shadow. A mark of the journey. The man offers a bundle of feathers, blue and white, bound in leather cord. He doesn't say what they mean, he doesn't have to. You place them on the girl's chest, above her heart. Her skin is still warm. There's no priest, no script, no god summoned with incense and bells. Just hands, fire, smoke, memory. You hum, someone else joins in. A soft, rising note that's more vibration than song. The kind of sound that sinks into your bones and stays there. The sound of letting go. Scholars might call it animism or proto-religion, might try to map your grief onto a chart of symbolic behaviour. But to you it's simpler. This is how you grieve. With ritual, with movement, with presence. You mark the body, you offer gifts, you let yourself feel everything, rage, sorrow, confusion. You do it together. That's the only truth that matters. By midday, the sun pierces through the cave mouth, falling in a single beam across the girl's face. Her mother takes that as the sign. It usually is. The group begins to move with purpose now. Quiet urgency. A grave must be dug, not too shallow, not too far from camp. You choose the willow grove, soft earth, shaded by leaves. A place the wind speaks gently. You help carry the child. She weighs almost nothing, like all the weight left with her final breath. The walk is slow, careful, the kind of walk that turns every step into ceremony. At the grove, the hole is already half dug. Two women work in silence, dirt piling beside them. You kneel and help with the last stretch, scooping soil with a flat stone, your arms aching. But you don't stop, not until it's done, and you line the grave with bark and moss. Someone adds dried flowers. The man lays the girl down with both hands, slow and deliberate, like he's placing her in the arms of something greater than himself. The woman kneels beside her, whispering words you can't hear. Maybe they're real, maybe they're not. And then, one by one, you all place something in the grave. A carved stone, a scrap of fur, a necklace of shell, a toy, just a stick and a feather, but one she loved. You leave your offering last. A strip of leather painted with red and white dots. It belonged to your mother once. Now it belongs to the girl. When the soil begins to fall, the sound is unbearable, dull, final. Each handful lands with a muffled thump that seems to echo inside your chest. You take your turn. You don't cry yet. Not here. Not while the work is being done. When the grave is covered, you mark it with a flat stone and press your palm into the dirt above it. Others do the same. A silent wall of hands and grief. Back at the cave, the fire is stoked higher than usual. You pass around broth and sit in silence. Grief is a strange thing in your world. It doesn't look like wailing or dramatic collapse. It looks like smaller portions, softer steps, longer hugs, fewer jokes. Someone starts a low chant near dusk. You join in, your voice hoarse. The song has no words, just vowels and breath. You repeat it until your throat aches, until your mind is blank, until all that's left is sound and sorrow. That night you sleep outside near the willow grove. The stars above you blink like they're mourning too. You don't talk to the others, you just lie on your side, eyes open, watching the wind move the branches. It's quiet, but not empty, because you're still here, and she is not, and you will carry that every day from now on.